Mudan, can you get my baseball cap? Yeah. Says it's Mudan, can you get my baseball cap? Yeah. Says it's Mudan, can you get my baseball cap? Yeah.
With Wise, you can spend and send money overseas with no hidden fees. And it could be up to
What a crowd. Who's ready to put Canada first?
with Wise.
Who's ready to
spend
axe
and
the
send money
tax?
overseas with no
Who's ready to build the
and
home?
It could be up to
Who's ready to stop the crime? And who is ready to bring it home and bring home the country we knew
with
and
Wise.
still love? Ready to
spend
axe
and
the
send money
tax?
overseas with no
Who's ready to build the home?
And
We got
could be
Northern Perspective over here.
Who's ready to
Tune in for
stop
them.
the crime?
Give them a round of applause. Thank you very much. What an incredible introduction by my beautiful wife. Isn't she incredible? She hit it out of the park again. Every time she takes the stage, people say that she should be Prime Minister of the country. And we have the great Andrew Lawton here, our next Member of Parliament. Andrew was an intrepid journalist who used to chase me around with a microphone, but we forgave him for that. And we have an incredible crew of Conservative MPs, MP Gladue, MP Rude, MP Epp, MP Nader, MP Brock, the prosecutor. Give it up for the common sense Conservative MPs. Anna and I are so blessed to be here to celebrate our wonderful country because it's done so much for us. Yeah, have a seat, relax, enjoy yourself. Stay for a while. You know, Anna and I, it might seem like we have different stories. She was born in cattle country in Venezuela and then emigrated here to Canada, starting off in a tiny basement apartment in Montreal. 6 people, her dad up at the crack of dawn, picking fruit in a farm field to feed the family. I was born to a teenage mother way over in Western Canada, and she put me up for adoption to 2 school teachers. But they taught me about the Canadian promise, the beautiful Canadian promise that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, that hard work gets you a great life in a beautiful house on a safe street, protected by brave troops under a proud flag. That was the Canadian promise. But after I grew up, I decided I wanted to get into politics in order to uphold that promise, to fight for lower taxes, affordable homes, safer streets, so that the next kid born to modest means could have the same opportunities that I had. And that's what I've been doing with my adult life. And for a long time, it worked. Our country had the promise restored and upheld. But after 10 years of the Trudeau-Carney Liberals, that promise, like everything else, is broken. Everything costs more. Work doesn't pay. Housing costs have literally doubled. Crime now overtakes our once safe and tranquil streets. And our country has become, and our economy has become so weak that President Trump unjustifiably and wrongly threatens us with tariffs and worse. My friends, we will not put up with this any longer. Canada needs change. Common sense Conservatives will bring that change and put Canada first. D'abord, je suis entré en politique à cause du fait que je voulais protéger la promesse du Canada, que peu importe vos origines, si vous travaillez fort, vous pouvez avoir une belle vie dans une belle maison, dans un quartier sécuritaire, protégé par des troupes courageux sous notre fier drapeau canadien. Mais cette promesse est brisée après 10 ans des libéraux. Et maintenant, les libéraux veulent essayer de tromper les Canadiens pour se faire élire une 4e fois en remplaçant Justin Trudeau avec son conseiller économique Mark Carney. Comme conseiller économique à Trudeau, Carney a affaibli notre économie et il a doublé le coût de logement, notre dette nationale et les files d'attente aux banques alimentaires, tout en même temps qu'il a profité personnellement à déménager des emplois du Canada aux États-Unis. En travaillant pour Trudeau, Carney a rendu le Canada plus faible et plus pauvre. En travaillant pour lui-même, il a rendu les États-Unis plus forts et plus riches. Pour la première fois, nous aurons un premier ministre sournois avec des millions de dollars d'intérêts financiers qui vont contre nos intérêts nationaux. Et Donald Trump va exploiter les conflits d'intérêts de Mark Carney à notre désavantage. Mais nous n'allons pas permettre ça. Les conservateurs vont gagner et vont mettre le Canada d'abord pour toujours. Nous allons reprendre le contrôle de notre économie et relancer la croissance. On va couper la bureaucratie, les taxes et les impôts. On va exploiter nos ressources naturelles. On va permettre l'échange entre les provinces et on va protéger nos frontières. Tout ça pour protéger la souveraineté économique et nationale du Canada. So now our Liberal friends, after they've caused all this damage, are going to pull a sneaky trick tonight. They're going to try to get elected for a 4th term. By replacing Justin Trudeau with his economic advisor, Mark Carney. Carney's advice drove up taxes, housing costs, and food prices, while he personally profited from moving billions of dollars and thousands of jobs out of Canada to the United States. Working for Trudeau, Carney made Canada weaker and poorer. Working for himself, Carney made the United States richer and stronger. And for the first time in our history, Canada will have a sneaky prime minister with millions of dollars of financial interests that go directly against our national interest. And make no mistake, Donald Trump will have a big smile on his face as he exploits all of Carney's many conflicts to attack Canadian workers and Canadian jobs. But we Conservatives won't let either of them do it. We will put Canada first. Thank you. We will put Canada first by bringing it home. This is the Bring It Home rally. Now, let me explain what that means. We've had a great Canada First rally already. And bringing it home is how you put Canada first. You see, what we've seen over the last 10 years of the Trudeau-Carney Liberals is that they've raised taxes, blocked projects, hammered our small businesses, all with the idea of driving money and jobs out of Canada. Now, a small group of economic elites have gotten fabulously rich, filling their pockets, as our working class communities have been devastated. Resource towns look like ghost towns. People have fallen into hopelessness and become addicted to drugs. This approach that sells out our country has allowed for China to send fentanyl into our communities, killing 50,000 people. Bringing it home means that we're going to crack down on the drugs, we're going to secure our borders, we're going to reinvigorate our economy, we're going to bring our resource sector roaring back to life, and we're going to allow our working class to thrive again. It's time. Bring it home. 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 Thank you. Bring it home. Bring it home. Bring it home. Bring it home. Thank you. We'll start by bringing home lower prices. As you've seen over the last 10 years, inflation has run rampant. The cause is very clear. Rampant government money printing to finance out-of-control deficits. The Carney-Trudeau Liberals have nearly doubled the cost of government and doubled the national debt. Now they can't borrow all that money, so they had to print it. Mark Carney famously said, "Don't worry about inflation," that we had to be worried about deflation. His concern was that prices might actually go down. Wouldn't that be a terrible thing? Maybe for him. His CEO said that the CEO of his company said inflation was good for Brookfield. Of course it is. When billionaires see their assets inflate, they get richer. Meanwhile, the working class sees the purchasing power of their paychecks go down. It's a transfer of wealth from the have-nots to the have-yachts. This is elite economics that Mark Carney has come to incarnate. He calls himself a globalist and an elitist, and he's right about both of those things. But here in Canada, we're going to protect the purchasing power of your money by getting rid of the money printing deficits. We will cut bureaucracy, consultants, corporate welfare, and foreign aid to bring down deficits, taxes, and inflation for you. We'll put in place a dollar-for-dollar law. It's very simple. We're going to run the finances of the country the way that a single mom, small business person, or senior runs their household finances. You spend more over here, you have to spend less over there. If a single mom wants to take her kids on a vacation, but she also needs to fix up the patio, well, she's got three options. One, she can choose the patio. Two, she can choose the vacation. Or three, she can get a bargain on both. That's something that politicians and bureaucrats never do because, the great economist Thomas Sowell said that scarcity is the #1 rule of economics. There's never enough to go around to satisfy all the demands. But the #1 rule of politics is to ignore the #1 rule of economics. Politicians don't experience scarcity because they just pass on the costs to everyone else, i.e. you. I want to bring that scarcity inside the government bureaucracy by requiring we're going to have a law. It's going to be very simple. If a politician or bureaucrat wants to spend more on one thing, they have to find the savings within their own department. They can't simply pass the bill on to you. That way, they'll have to go hunting for the savings. To root out waste, optimize spending, get more value for our money the way that single mom does in her home. Here are some ideas. They've doubled the cost of consultants up to almost $20 billion. Over $1,000 for every family in Canada goes to fund federal government consultants every single year. We're going to cut that. We're going to cut back on the rampant growth in the bureaucracy. We don't need 50% more bureaucrats to do less work. We're going to cut back on the corporate welfare, the big fat government checks that go to multinational corporations that rip off our people and move jobs out of our country. I would rather cut taxes for Canadian small businesses who bring the jobs back home to Canada. Bring it home. Bring it home. And of course, the best and most direct way to lower the cost of living is by axing the Trudeau-Carney carbon tax. Absolutely. Axe the tax. 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 Now, careful everybody, because sneaky Mark Carney's going to try to pull a fast one on you. Here's what he's got planned. Here's what he's got planned. I'm making a prediction. Are you listening? Yes. Next week, he's going to hide the carbon tax. He's going to tell his environment minister to leave the carbon tax law in place, but just stop collecting it for a few months until the election is over. And then he'll bring in an even bigger shadow carbon tax. That's what his plan is. By the way, I didn't come up with that term. He did. He said, don't worry, it'll just apply on places like steel mills. He asked a journalist the other day, really, you won't pay any more. When was the last time you bought steel? Did anybody come here in a car? Do you know the beams and the structure of this building? Do you think this roof would stand up if there was no steel in our walls, in our frames? Everything we have would come crumbling down if you remove steel. Carney admits that this tax would trickle down in higher automobile prices, but it's much worse than that. I'll tell you one thing right now. Stelco, Algoma, all the steel makers in Canada will be out of Canada in no time, heading straight into the arms of Donald Trump if Mark Carney brings in a carbon tax on our industry. But we won't let him. I will axe the tax for everyone for good, and we will bring those jobs home. Now listen, we're going to bring home more powerful paychecks for our people as well. And it starts with a big, patriotic.
Probably echoed. Now I'm not echoing. I wish I was like Tony Robbins and I could have millions of dollars and I could have all the screens open so everyone can see themselves, and then I could jump up and down and everyone else will jump up and down. Because I could be the next prime minister. Bring it home! Bonehead. God bless you. I do like you, bro. I'm all my faith is going into you, so I hope you do something good.
Taxes on businesses that actually invest in Canada, those that take money out of the country, so that we get more machines, more factories, and more opportunity. And we need the right kind of jobs. What we need in this country is boots, not suits. Right? We're going to make sure that our job training and education dollars go to the trades. We need the carpenters, the electricians, the pipe fitters, and plumbers. We will make sure that they are able to get the training they need. We're going to back up the apprentices. We're going to take tax. We're going to allow them to deduct the full cost of their food, transportation, and accommodation to go from one job site to another. If a CEO can write off his private jet, then a pipe fitter from Timmins should be able to write off the cost to go to Fort Mac. But our people need, if you want to bring home a paycheck, you need a home to bring it to, right? And right now in Canada, we've seen that housing costs have doubled. They've risen faster than in any other G7 country. Toronto and Vancouver are now the most expensive housing markets in the whole of North America, worse than New York, Chicago, say Seattle, and many other places with more people, more money, and much less land. Why is it that Canadians, with the second biggest land mass in the world, actually spend more on housing than many countries with very little land to live on? The answer is government gatekeepers block the way. We have the second slowest building permits anywhere in the world, in the developed world. That adds as much as 60% of the cost of a new home. For example, in Vancouver today, 60% of the
Anyway.
cost of a new home is just government taxes, delays, gatekeepers, consultants. More money for new bureaucracy, more money for a new home goes to bureaucracy than goes to the carpenters, electricians, and welders who
All right, I gotta pause this guy. We gotta watch. I gotta watch Mr. Crybaby. Mr. Crybaby.
And long into the future. Because in the past few weeks, we've been working with our provincial and territorial partners to make sure that families can rely on
What's
this
going
system,
on here?
not just for years to come, but will allow this system to lock in, to become something that no government, a year from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now, could ever.
Huh.
And it's hard to do, because there is nothing one government can't do that can't be undone by the following government, unless Canadians are very clear on the need to keep this going. So we are going to make sure that more Canadians over the coming years understand.
Daddy, would you like some sausages? This guy's such a meathead. He just needs to disappear. Poof.
That childcare is a foundational building block of what it means to be Canadian, like healthcare or social programs or cheering at a Canadian anthem. Today, we have great news to share.
I can hear in the background babies crying.
With 11 of 13 provinces and territories to extend current early learning and childcare agreements until March 2031.
We would like your children to be objects or products of the state. The state. This is what's going on. This guy's making us into This is not a good thing, my friends. This is really not a good thing. He's it's bad.
I'm Darian, and I'm a technician at Speedy Glass.
I'm gonna see if it's on yet. 12:57. It should be. It'll be coming up here any second, guys. CTV.
Carbon Tax Carney. He's just like Justin.
CTV News Channel. Stay with us.
Chalet Seafood Fest is back. Hurry in
No
for Canada's
way.
famous
Swiss
rotisserie
chalet?
chicken paired with garlic shrimp, our delicious fish and chips, fish sandwich, or our popcorn shrimp appetizer.
How
All
come you
here
can't
for a
see
limited
it?
Time, starting from only $16.99, only at Swiss Chalet.
First, we won JD Power, ranking Ram the #1 brand in new vehicle quality. Then we won
Can't see anything.
2025 Motor
Good
Trend
music,
Truck of the
though.
Year. Now, we're throwing our weight around even more with the new Ram Heavy Duty.
You know it.
Well,
boom,
you know what
liberal.
they say.
The
You win
liberal
some,
debate.
you win some. And every win is inspired by the ones who drive us. Ram,
Don't piss me off.
built to serve.
I'll knock you out.
Thousands of entrepreneurs
Or
don't
as
have
the booth
access
says,
to the
pew
support
pew.
they need.
Pew pew.
Breaking down doors for entrepreneurs.
What the heck's going on
We're
here?
on
It's
it.
supposed to be like...
BDC. Financing, advising, know-how.
And sometimes the last thing before bed is loved by young and old.
Please like,
It's
please
not
subscribe
just
to the
us.
channel. It's the only thing that I give a shit about. I love some of these streamers. I really appreciate some of the things that they say. I mean, this is their only job, so God bless. It's great, but I can't put all my marbles in one bucket. I got a few buckets, dear Liza, dear Liza. I've got a few buckets, dear Liza. Some buckets. There's a hole in my bucket, dear Liza, dear Liza. There's a hole in my bucket, dear Liza, a hole. I was in operettas and plays when I was a child.
Settle debts or help my wife with retirement planning. I'll do it.
So my friends, I'm sorry that they keep logging.
To get a free, no obligation quote, call one of our trusted insurance advisors today at 1-844-808-7120 or visit
Decision day. It's a decision day, don't you know? It's not gonna go away. Hey, hey, hey. Live coverage. This is the live coverage piece. Something's going on. It's happening. Oh. Here we go.
And as Prime Minister, who Donald Trump is afraid of.
It is time for a new generation.
Why is it not coming up?
Generation of leadership that
Sorry, friends. I'm just trying to locate this stupid, silly thing. There we go.
Hi there, and welcome to special coverage today on CTV of
Special,
the Liberal
special,
leadership
special.
race. I am Vashi Kapelos, coming to you from our nation's capital.
Okay, my friends, if you're in here, I'm going to be like bouncing in and out and like totally talking peanuts and popcorn and A&W root beer vanilla floats about this silliness that we're involved in, this absolute ludicrous craziness that we have to take part in just to see who our next prime minister is going to be. We all know who it should be. It should be Justin Trudeau because he's the most famous like celebrity that's popping out celebrities and they're becoming rap stars. Straight facts. I should be the next prime minister. Just give me a chance. Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play.
Well, in just a few hours, not only will this party have a new leader, but this country will have a new prime minister for at least a little while. And we have coverage.
She just said that, for at least a little while. Fantastic, fantastic news broadcaster.
All night of that process unfolding. Here are your 4 candidates for the leadership of this party and this country. Frank Baylis, a former MP there to your left. Mark Carney, former Bank of Canada governor, next to him. Former finance minister Chrystia Freeland and former government House leader Karina Gould rounds us out. We'll be live on
because
the
the reality is
here
it
for
should
the
just
winner
be Freeland.
and the winner's
because
speech tonight. Right now, though, we have
She's
some
the
of this
next in
country's
line.
top political minds to set the stage for what we can anticipate and really the significance of what is set to unfold. I'm going to start at the end
This
of
is
the
gonna
table.
be
We've got
really
Corey
hard.
Tenike. Was Ontario Premier Doug Ford's
Hey,
campaign manager, as well as former Director of Communications to Prime Minister
Hey,
Stephen
can everyone
Harper.
hear me?
Scott Reed
Well,
is a
can
CTV
you let
News
me know
political analyst
in
and former
the chat
Communications
that
Director
my
to Prime
sound
Minister
is
Paul
okay?
Martin. And Kathleen Monk is a former NDP strategist and as well a communications director to the late Jack Layton. Hello, everybody. Hey there.
Hello.
Fancy seeing
Good,
you
good.
here. Exactly. Kathleen, I'll start with you. I think that the elephant in the room, certainly the thing that has defined this race and really politics at this moment is Donald Trump and the threats made to Canada. How do you think it has impacted what is going to unfold tonight?
Well, it's interesting because really you could say that Canadians are not just, and Liberals are not just looking for a new Liberal leader. They're actually looking for a prime minister who can fight an election that may be almost a wartime election. It's certainly an economic almost a wartime election. It's certainly an economic war now, but there are threats to the sovereignty of our country that it could actually escalate. And I actually think Scott said it best just earlier this morning on Question Period when he said Liberals are looking for a ready-built leader, and they're seeing that in Mark Carney. I think the most surprising thing, though, about this race is just how it hasn't been competitive. We thought going into this race,
it hasn't been competitive because it's only been 2 weeks, and the person that's in the lead by like leaps and bounds and yard markers and football fields wasn't even forecasted to be running like 2 months ago.
with Freeland triggering, in
phone?
fact, Justin Trudeau's resignation, that she would have more of a fight in her. We thought we would get to see the former finance minister versus the bank governor, but it really was a clear one-person lead from the very, very beginning. And even though there's some exciting stuff to talk about, and I'm sure we'll talk about over the course of the show, like Karina Gould and the movement she's built behind her, it really is just Carney's race. And we really haven't seen that fight from Freeland that I think many of us expected.
Kathleen reminds me, Scott, of the fact that this race started as a bloodbath. Like, it is fascinating to think of where this country politically was 2-3 months ago with the prime minister at all-time lows when it comes to his popularity. Chrystia Freeland with the knife in his back. 2 weeks later, making that announcement outside of Rideau Cottage. Would you have thought then that this is where things would be tonight?
Or he doesn't know.
No, and look, we thought, oh my God, how could they even hold a leadership in this tiny envelope of time? Yet it feels like a lifetime ago. But all of that was what defined our politics. Now, Carney looks like he is not only going to carry the leadership tonight and then become prime minister, but that suddenly he's made the Liberals competitive again, which who would have believed that 2 months ago? On top of that, as you say, Donald Trump drives and defines almost every aspect of our political life now. He drove the Ontario election campaign, Corey helping Doug Ford get reelected in Ontario, and he's driving this leadership in terms of choice. Why have we not seen a more competitive race? I think it is because people looked at the resume of Mark Carney. They saw this is a person who comes in with not just experience at the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, but someone who helped manage the crisis, the financial crisis, international financial crisis of 2009, and then again with Brexit. And they go, well, this is a guy who actually seems like he might be purpose-built for this moment. Let's hire him. And then I think a lot of Canadians are saying, maybe this is the guy we want to hire for prime minister. We're going to know soon, because right after this, I think he's going to kick us into an election.
Corey, you've been inside at the top levels of a lot of campaigns, including the one you just ran.
Right.
What do you make of what's happened to the Liberals over the last few months? That resurrection of sorts.
I think it's them floating back up to what I think historic levels of support have been.
I'm at home all
the Liberal Party is the most successful political party probably in the Western world, if you're looking at how many years it's spent in government over like the last 100 years. so as a conservative, it's always a bit of a struggle. Like, you know, you're trying to push them down, and you can maybe push them down to
What a
25.
fabulous
what did
orange
Trudeau
tie.
come out, like 21, 22.
Yeah.
But they're like you know, an 80s slasher film. Like there's
They never
always
die.
there's
They never
another
die.
sequel. You can light them on fire. You can hit them with a machete, run them over with a truck, but they pop back up at, you know, 30, 35%. And so, you know, I don't think the Conservatives were ever going to be able to maintain, you know, numbers in the high 40s, which they had for a little while. You know, we had something similar happening in Ontario, but like it's very unusual to have a party sitting at that level, especially a Conservative party in the country. And so what I think you're seeing by removing Trudeau from the equation is the Liberal Party and the Liberal brand kind of floating up to where I think its natural floor is, not, you know, 10 points below that natural floor. And I think you're going to have more of a race because the choice was between Trudeau and Poilievre, but it wasn't really a choice. It's like not Trudeau. Now you're going to have, I think, more of a comparison to these two individuals. One is I think a very skilled politician. In Pierre Poilievre, he's got a lot of game as a political athlete. And the other has got, you know, as Scott pointed out, a pretty killer resume for the time that we're in. But I think is a less tested politician in terms of his ability to campaign. So I think it's going to be a very dynamic race to see how this plays out. But for us commentators, it's more fun because it was going to be boring in a good way for me if Trudeau had stayed. But now I think it's a more competitive environment.
Yeah, definitely more competitive. All right, we're going to be getting all three of your insights throughout the rest of the evening. Right now, though, I'm going to get some more insights from the one and only Mike Lecouture, our senior political correspondent, who will be live for us on the floor all night. Mike, over to you. You have one of the leadership contestants with you.
I'm Christian.
Yeah, we've got Frank Baylis, of course, former MP for the Liberals and Montreal businessman as well. Mr. Baylis, thanks so much for joining us. I guess the first question for you is, how has today been in trying to get the vote out, and over the last week, how has your machine been working?
We've been working overtime, obviously. There's a tremendous amount of support, and we have it right across the country. People have had a few challenges voting, so we've been there to help them out, walk them through the system and all that.
How do you feel about your chances?
I think I feel happy and realistic and good. I mean, I don't know. I'm a huge believer in democracy, so I always encourage everybody, run. If you have something to say, say it and run.
When you say realistic, what does that mean?
I think that I started here as the least known of the four candidates, so that's a bigger hill for me to climb. But over the course of the race, I've been slowly building it up. My challenge has really been time, because as people get to know me, they really get on board. So I've just been working hard in that direction.
When you consider where the party is going and where you're going to be in that party going forward, I know you have sort of said you haven't really committed to running again, but committed to talking to the next leader and having a role to play. What role do you want to play if it's not leader going forward?
Well, look, I do hope to be a leader, but if not, I've been a Liberal, like I've said, for 48 years, and I've always contributed. You have in this room here 2,000 people. They're not all MPs, and they all contribute. So I'll always be contributing, and I'll sit down with whoever's here. I think all of them are excellent. And I'd just say, if they want a role for me, I'd role.
All right, so we will check in with Frank Baylis and Mike as soon as that connection is reestablished. Frank Baylis, one of four people who are running. The decision announced tonight to be Liberal leader and, of course, the next Prime Minister of this country. We've got coverage for you all evening. I'll take a quick commercial break. Our
Cough
special
and cold
coverage right here on
symptoms?
CTV
Buckley's
continues
knows
after
you'll
that break.
try
Back in a
anything for relief. It's not that we don't believe in the near mythical powers of chicken noodle soup. We just believe in Buckley's more. Buckley's. It tastes awful and it works.
Advancing. Game-changing formulas that promote mental sharpness and help extend
My game
lives.
face doesn't take days
See
off.
what nutrition can
It's
do.
Green Bar, releasing trapped
Purina
hairs,
Pro Plan.
so you can get virtually every
Always
hair in a
advancing.
single stroke.
That's smooth.
The best your game can get is Gillette Labs.
You are a traveler, and you're
Donate online at carsforkids.ca. That's cars with a K. Pickup is quick and easy. You will benefit a child and get a
Where in the
maximum tax
heck?
credit. 1-877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
5,000 years of Chinese music and dance in one night.
See it at least once in your lifetime. Returning to 9 cities across Canada, starting March 21st. Tickets at genuine.com.
Cough and cold symptoms? Buckley's knows you'll try anything for relief. It's not that we don't believe in the near mythical powers of chicken noodle soup. We just believe in Buckley's more. Buckley's. It tastes awful, and it works.
Practice starts in 20. Let's get it. C-Mac.
Who saves for practice?
My game face doesn't take days off with Gillette Labs. Its green bar releases trapped hairs, so you can get virtually every hair in a single stroke.
That's move.
Hi there, and welcome back to downtown Ottawa. I'm Vashi Capellos, coming to you live from the Liberal leadership race. In just about a few hours, or just over a few hours, we anticipate the new leader of this party will be announced. He or she will also become the next prime minister of this country for some period of time until an election is called. I am here with Kathleen Monk, Scott Reed, and Corey Teneycke, looking ahead to what we can anticipate. Corey, I'll start with you. We in the last round focused on sort of the dominant theme of Donald Trump and how to counter him. Mark Carney's kind of dominance in this race. What about the race to second place? A couple of, in particular, between Karina Gould and Chrystia Freeland.
Well, the reason we're even having this race is because of Freeland and her decision to pull herself out of cabinet. So I think she's played a pretty big role in having a race at all occur. But I'm not sure whether she's going to finish second. And when this started, I think it would be unthinkable to not think that was going to be the competitive race. So I think Karina Gould has done very well for herself. I think she's sort of carved out a niche as the progressive voice inside the Liberal Party. And sometimes having a positioning like that, I think can do well for you in these kinds of races. That said, it is such an impossible thing to poll and to have a sense of what's going to happen in these point-based systems with only certain people in the country being able to vote. Liberal, are you even allowed to call them members now?
No, they're just pylons. They're not participants.
But so I'll be very interested to see what happens. But look, even if her campaign didn't really light fire, I think Freeland has left a real mark in terms of having contributed so much into having a race happen at all. So
certainly that is the biggest kind of news moment of the campaign for Freeland was the fact, Scott, that she started it. Just quickly to add to what Corey's saying, 100 as of just a few moments ago, 151,899 ballots cast. That's the final tally. There is a point-based system where each riding gets the same points, but it's a ranked ballot.
Yes.
So we could, we
make sure
could try and
everyone
analyze
can hear
forever what's going to
everything
happen with
good.
respect
I've got
to that.
a big brain theory.
Echoing, please let me know
But I
in
do want to
the
know
chat.
what you think of, in particular,
Please and
what Corey
thank you.
mentioned around Karina Gould, and that I guess the relative
And
quietness
I want to
of
apologize
Freeland's
at the
campaign.
beginning and throughout this for my
There's been an avalanche of
despicable
astonishing
remarks that I'll be
things
making
over the
throughout.
course of the last 2-3 months. And we forget how astonishing it was that on the day that she was set to deliver
If you can't grow a
the
beard,
fiscal
bro,
update,
cut it off.
Chrystia Freeland steps down, then begins to call for Trudeau's departure. That set in motion everything that has led to today. And without that action, we probably would not have seen Trudeau voluntarily leave office. And who knows how this past couple of months might have unfolded. I don't think she's being rewarded in this race for that. I think fundamentally there's going to be a certain cell of Liberals who are going to say, well, I have, as a partisan party member, I have a grievance with that. And then, even though the many who said, well, I did want Trudeau to live and I did want the party to have an opportunity to resurrect and renew itself, I'm still not going to necessarily reward her because I doubt her ability to win a general election. And so whether it was change or whether it was traditional Liberals who didn't like the action, it's kind of left her in the middle, and Karina Gould has run an energetic campaign. Last thing I would say, and I am going to go that silly point system, because it's a preferential ballot, I think this. If Carney's garnering, say, 60% and 65% wins on the first ballot, who are his people putting second? I think a lot of Liberals who are going to vote for Carney first might say, you know what? I really admired Karina Gould's campaign. I thought it showed energy. I'm just going to give her the second place ribbon, and they tick that box. And I think that Freeland might really suffer by that logic.
I think also, I mean, ultimately caucus and cabinet support doesn't determine what the membership writ large does. But it is difficult as someone, you know, to not read something into the fact that Chrystia Freeland sat in one of the top jobs in cabinet for the last decade in a couple of different roles and, you know, was a prominent figure in caucus and had so much less support in both than Mark Carney.
Yeah, she doesn't have her colleagues who sat around the cabinet table with her giving her support. And I think it's, you know, Scott raised the question, you know, they're not rewarding her for triggering this race. No, quite the opposite. They're punishing her.
Yeah.
Because either you are angry at Chrystia Freeland because you triggered this and you supported Justin Trudeau and you wanted to him to have some kind of graceful exit, which he essentially was denied and triggered this race. Or in fact, you actually did want Justin Trudeau to leave and you question why Chrystia Freeland as a candidate didn't work earlier to trigger this possibility and push him out, because she did stand side by, you know, shoulder to shoulder with him right up until that just really dramatic December 16th day. On Gould quickly, you know, she has had a remarkable campaign. She was at 2% name recognition in January. No one knew who she was, despite the fact that she had been a cabinet minister for almost 10 years. And now she has run a pretty peppy, you know, campaign and has attracted a younger kind of cohort of voters. Potentially, we'll see today if they were more digitally savvy and able to navigate the verification system. And she actually comes in second. But certainly, what we're watching for the most is who is that second choice? Who is going to come in second place today?
And I'll give her a tiny bit of credit. She's also the candidate who opened herself up to the most Canadian accountability from Canadian media by far.
Yep.
And well, her and Frank Bayless, but of the three top ones.
And credit that may count. That may count against her. But
Scott,
no, but I would say she's the clearest communicator of them all. In fact, the two
She's the
front runners that we
clearest
spoke about, Freeland and
communicator.
Carney, still speak in a bit of consultant
does that mean, clearest?
speak,
Like,
you know, and Karina has been clear
she
and
doesn't have a
relatable,
raspy voice?
and I think that's to her credit.
Okay, well, we anticipate
That's
in
her
about an
credit.
hour, we're
She's
actually going
got
to
a
hear
clear
from
voice.
each of the candidates. We also think that, or we also have on schedule at least that we're going to hear from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, because as the new Prime Minister comes in, he will leave, and former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien, plus, of course, the announcement of the winner and speech from the winner. All of that coming up tonight. I'll take another commercial break. On the other end of that break, our special coverage continues right here from Ottawa.
Okay, so I'm going to try and find some other things to watch during their silly commercial breaks.
USA Network, here for the characters. Free preview on now.
You know, retirement doesn't have to mean giving something up. It should mean living life on your own terms. Well, thankfully, if you're a Canadian homeowner, age 55 and better, you can access some of your home's value in tax.
All right, my friends. You want to watch some real stuff? I'll show you what's happening real in our city. This is downtown Vancouver. She's a 20-year-old young lady who was going to a regular high school 3 years ago. I worked with her for a week or so and helped her get into a safe place called the Covenant House. Check this out. God bless you, girl.
Thank you.
You can get help, right?
Yeah.
How are you going to get help?
I'm making progress on getting into treatment center with the help of the Direction Center.
New Directions.
Yeah, the Direction Center up the street.
On Granville.
Yeah, it's just
It's up that way. Oh, New Direction by the St. Paul's Hospital.
yeah, but
Yeah.
St. Paul's Hospital.
So you can go in there and get some help, right?
Yeah.
Do they, like, when you go into there, do they, like, try to talk you into getting help? Or do you go in there and then you can get, like, pipes and shit like that?
Honestly, there's one area where you can do that, and there's a completely other area where you can help.
All right. So you're from North Van, or North, what school did you go to?
I went to Seattle second.
You went to Seattle. I don't.
And I didn't get a room, and the second day they said, get in the van and we got a room for you. I said, you better not be fucking with me.
Seriously, this is what I'm telling you. Every day I run into more people. There's a gentleman sitting right there in front of me. I'm standing up. He's got a spinal cord problem. This is crazy, guys. It's insane. Where did my
you in that vein. Like the two things that have happened in the 2-month span where we're looking at those numbers on the screen. One, Justin Trudeau quit. And two, Donald Trump was inaugurated and started directly threatening Canada. Your thoughts on if both hadn't happened, would we be looking at that screen?
No, it usually takes a few things, Vashi, to move the numbers. It's usually not one thing. You know, I think when we look at what's happened, Justin Trudeau stepping down really was the initial event that kind of started to change things for the Liberals. But it wasn't enough just that. And, you know, the thing is with Donald Trump and the threats that he's made against Canada, tariffs, all that kind of stuff, it's put things into focus. And you know what, Vashi? We thought the election was going to be, is it time for a change? I think now, because of Donald Trump, the uninvited guest in Canadian politics, we're looking at an election that's probably going to be about who can best manage the relationship with the U.S. administration and kind of get Canada through that. And you know what? It's still too early to tell whose advantage that might be as Canadians look at all of the choices very differently.
Can you sit there for 1 second if you don't mind? Because, in fact, when you talk about navigating that relationship with the U.S., my colleague Michael Couture is on the floor live with Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly. Mike, over to you.
Yeah, China.
Thanks for that so much,
very, they want to
Minister
become
Joly, I guess
comrade.
first question is, when we consider where Donald Trump has left the week and where we might be going this week, considering tariffs on dairy possibly, what is Canada doing to ramp up that response and making sure that no matter what happens, we are ready for that?
Well, listen, I've said it, and I think a lot of people notice that we won't go through this psychodrama every 30 days, and I stand by my words, because we need to make sure that we keep the pressure against
What's the psychodrama?
Trump administration while they're going after us for no good reason. So that's why we kept the $30 billion worth of counter tariffs on American goods in place. Meanwhile, we're continuing to engage. We're making sure that we're ready also, because there's a possibility of a
She's just looking for words in her word salad talk.
round of tariffs against steel and aluminum this week, because the executive order, which is related to steel and aluminum tariffs, is coming into place on March 12th, so this week. And then there's also another executive order from President Trump that is about reciprocal tariffs, and it is in line with an...
People that have to use their hands to talk about things, they either don't have the confidence in the people they're talking to, or they don't have the confidence. It's a really confidence lackluster when you're using your hands a lot. I do it, and when I realize I'm doing it, I try to keep my hands down, because words are more powerful than words with hand gestures.
Second delay. So as you can see, there are many different timelines that are presented to us that is affecting Canada, but also many countries in the world. So my point is we'll continue to defend Canadian jobs. We'll continue to defend all the families that depend on these jobs.
Thanks for joining, and thanks for watching.
Canadian way of life.
If you want to
and
know
so
how to
we'll
snort
keep the pressure on, and we'll
your
fight.
drugs
This
properly,
week you were hosting
can
the foreign
go
ministers
downtown
from the
in
G7.
Vancouver,
How do you keep up that
NDP
pressure, and how difficult
will
of a
give you
conversation are you
pamphlets
anticipating
on
with Secretary of State Rubio?
Prevention,
So I spoke to
preventing
Secretary of State
infections.
Rubio
This is
on
how
Thursday.
important
It was
this
a
woman is.
constructive
She's just saying nothing that's constructive.
conversation.
So I'm going to show you my beautiful. You can have a different colored straw. You can choose. Look at that. Look at this. Is beautiful. Hey, look at that. Make it your own. Make it your own. Choose a colorful straw. There are many D that can be snort through their effects. There's uppers and downers and disassociatives. Over-ramping or overdose is what happens when your body is exposed to more rubies than it can handle. The supply of D's is unpredictable. You don't know what you're getting when you buy it. At least when you buy your Crown Royal, you know what you're going to get. And you know what you're going to get with your Grey Poupon. Oh, my Lord. The best way to prevent a fatal OD is to not use alone and to have your naloxone kit. You know, I keep saying this, right? There is no bottom anymore for people. They just will do drugs. Anyways, let's go back to see what this chick's talking about.
Working with this administration while fighting for our jobs.
That's
we need
right.
to
It's
be
not
able
about
to do
Trump.
both. Keep on the pressure.
Trump's
make
just
sure
that
that we're
womp,
united
womp, womp,
and
womp,
fight
womp.
back. Meanwhile, my job as Canada's top diplomat is to find off-ramps.
Whoa.
And of course, I'm engaging
Her top
with
diplomat.
Secretary Rubio.
Man, the chick just
but
his
at the
ego
same
is just
time, my
absolutely
colleague, the
blowing
Minister
out.
of Finance, Dominic LeBlanc, is also engaging with Secretary Lutnick. So we're working this through. But I'm saying that to all those watching us right now, we need to continue to buy Canadian. We need to make sure that we support Make Canadian. We need to make sure also that we
Too late for this.
you
They
know,
should have been sending
travel
this
across the country or
campaign
elsewhere
like
in
the
the
last
world,
10
not
years.
necessarily,
Buy Canadian, make Canadian,
in the US because
support
we
Canadian.
have purchasing
They
power.
don't.
We have an impact on what's going on in
We
the
don't
US.
have purchasing
And Canada
power.
is the biggest client of the United States. We buy more than China, Japan, the UK, and France. And so when Canadians all across the country are united to
You're
send
right,
a
Cliff,
clear
it's
message
not
to the Trump
about Trump.
administration and to send a clear message
Absolutely.
to the American people that what they're doing will cost them, you know, what the Trump administration is doing will cost them more at the pump, more at the
I
grocery
really
store,
do
more
like
when they
Pierre
buy a new house
Cliff,
or
but
try
I'm
to renovate
really
their
tired
house,
of his talking
more we're
points.
able to send that
Unfortunately,
message that
there's
ultimately
nothing more he
the
can
Trump
talk about
administration is
because
creating inflation
government
in
shut
the
down.
US, and the American people get that, more they'll be in turn be able to make sure that they put pressure on the Trump administration and ultimately will win. We know that we're united. We know that the US is divided. And so that's why for all those who've been supporting buying Canadian, thank you, and we need to continue to hold strong.
Last quick question for you. You've been supporting Mark Carney, helping in his work.
As she wears her Louis Vuitton bag.
He will win today.
I think Canadians are looking for three things. First, somebody that embodies change, which is what Mark embodies. Second, somebody that it will
He got fired from his last job and he stepped down from his last job. And the last things that he did was he said what? He's left everything for this opportunity. He quit everyone that he was working with for this opportunity.
Brexit. So I think he has that expert.
He's never been a politician.
Somebody that will be able to beat Pierre Poilievre and that, you know, that will be there to defend Canadian jobs and Canada's Canadian way of life. And so that's why I'm supporting him. And I look forward to be there tonight to make sure that he wins.
Appreciate it. Melanie Joly,
Thank
Foreign
you.
Affairs Minister. Thanks so much for joining us. Vash, just send it back up to you.
She just wants a job.
Okay, that's our senior political correspondent, Mike Le Couture, on the floor with Foreign Affairs Minister.
Wow,
Melanie
that's
Joly.
awesome.
Nick Nanos has been sitting next to me, listening in. Nick, two things I wanted to ask you out of that conversation. The first, of
Thanks,
course,
James.
The focus on Donald Trump.
I'm going to go up to
Rubio coming
PG
here.
and
You
probably
did a very
2
specific
weeks.
polling for our
2
show
weeks.
this weekend, actually, about the degree to which how to navigate Donald Trump will be what influences people's votes in the next federal election. Because you had done it similarly for the Ontario election as well. Tell us a bit about what you found. We've got those numbers up right now.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. You know, we asked Canadians what will influence their vote in the upcoming federal election, and they could say whatever they wanted. It was open-ended. You can see Trump at the top of the list at around 36%, followed by jobs in the economy at 29%. And why don't we just say the rest, right? Because they're only about 5 or 6%. The key takeaway here is that, you know, for a majority of Canadians, they are fixated on Donald Trump and fixated on what it might mean for jobs in the economy. The kicker is, you know, St. Paddy's Day is coming up. The Fighting Irish are coming out in Canadians, you know, because there's a significant amount of support for dollar retaliation. That's what the Americans are getting from Canada. And, you know, the thing is, for once, I think there's a little bit of a political consensus from the Liberals and the Conservatives and the New Democrats that we've got to respond to the United States firmly in order to kind of get through this period.
Last question for you. There is not consensus among those parties about who should be leading the country in that fight, right? And I did want to ask you, Minister Joly, talking about why she's endorsed, you know, it's a pretty high-profile endorsement for Carney in Quebec in particular. There's a lot, you know, he certainly has benefited from the idea of who he is, right? But there hasn't been a lot of scrutiny. There have been some trip-ups of late, for example, around what role he did or didn't play in moving the head office of a company whose board he chaired. Like, can we expect more of that stuff in a campaign? And the lack of testing for Mark Carney in a political sense. What kind of thing will you be watching for if, in fact, he does win tonight?
Well, it's going to be trial by fire for Mark Carney, because the reality is that this Liberal convention and leadership process has been softball politics, right? There haven't been any hardballs, spitballs, curveballs, or anything thrown at Mark Carney. But, the thing is that he was the governor of the Bank of England, so he has dealt with a pretty tough media there, and there's a tough media in Canada too. I think it's going to come down to Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre explaining why they think they are the best person to deal with Donald Trump, and Canadians will judge. And the thing is that the election will matter, because who knows what Donald Trump is going to be saying day by day in the election, and who knows how each of the federal party leaders are going to have to manage responding to Donald Trump.
Okay, Nick, we'll be picking your brain all night for your analysis. Nick Nanos is the founder and chief data scientist of Nanos Research. I've got to take a commercial break, but after that break, we have plenty more coverage here as we count down to the announcement of the next Liberal leader and the new Prime Minister of this country. Back in a moment.
At No Frills, we're here to help you save money.
Take your time. Please.
Saving you money. It's the No Frills thing to do.
What is it about a place that stays with you long after you leave?
What is it?
Truth is,
my friends,
it's never
I'm
was
going to get a
at all.
banana.
I'm death gonna miss my class if I try and pack my lunch. Oh no, spilled coffee on myself again. I really shouldn't drop $25 on a sandwich. These nails weren't cheap. More coffee, stat. If you know, you know. Slate that exam, treat yourself, right? I could cook, but no. We're here for you 24/7. So if you didn't know, now you know.
With Cascade Platinum Plus, I have upped my dish game.
Auntie, in that dishwasher.
Watch me.
Platinum Plus gives you the highest standard of clean, even in your machine.
Clean enough for you?
Yeah.
Scrape, load, done. Cascade Platinum Plus.
With 24/7 roadside assistance, help is always on hand.
When arthritis pain makes the stairs feel like a summit, there's Tylenol Arthritis with 2 layers of pain relief. One acts fast, one lasts for up to 8 hours, and it's gentle on your stomach. Tylenol Arthritis, made for everyday moments.
I think we want to have some fun today.
We know how to make fun.
I hope you enjoy Thailand.
We usually go to the Caribbean.
I almost died today.
No, you didn't.
Something's off. Got a really bad feeling. I'm a little freaked out.
I think you survived.
Build Canada first, 100%. Carney is not
Hi
a
there,
weak
welcome back to our
politician.
special
He's
coverage of the
not a
Liberal leadership
politician.
race. We're in downtown Ottawa this afternoon, counting down. In about 2
But-
hours from now, we anticipate this party will choose their new leader. Here's a live look inside the room, which is starting to fill up considerably. The formal part of the program gets underway in about 25 minutes' time. A couple of speeches from outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien are expected. Plus, of course, the
I'm so dreading
announcement of
that.
the winner and then a speech from the winner. We're going to have live coverage of all of that. Here to help me set the stage for what we can anticipate is our panel of great minds, or Sunday strategy session as we call them on Question Period. Corey Tonight, Scott Reed, and Kathleen Monk. Scott, I'll start with you. And I wanted to talk a little bit about sort of the bigger picture as we head into a possible general election. And I'll start off with a clip for everyone to listen to from Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Federal Conservatives, who this afternoon held a rally in London, Ontario. Here's what he had to say about Mark Carney.
Now our Liberal friends, after they've caused all this damage, are going to pull a sneaky trick tonight.
Yep.
They're going to try to get elected for a 4th term. By a 4th term by replacing Justin Trudeau with his economic advisor, Mark Carney. Carney's advice drove up taxes,
excuse
housing
my
costs,
excuse
and
my
food prices,
while
he
F word.
personally profited
Sorry, YouTube,
from moving billions of
but,
dollars and
BS.
thousands of jobs out of Canada to the United States.
So a couple of things, Scott, stick out there. Number one, the Conservatives determined about a month and a half ago this was Carney fait accompli, and their ads have reflected that, and they're sort of who they talk about when they do talk about the Liberals. Second, though, they will really continue to try and say, and maybe to success, I don't know, but that it's the same, right? That this is still make it a question of change and say that this actually won't be change. I think that's what I garner from that.
No question. That's exactly what you hear. And they want to cling to the frame of change, which had rewarded them so handsomely in the polls for so long. I guess, the question really is whether that is going to be the ballot question. And we hear from Nick Nanos a second ago, and we've heard from many other pollsters who have told us that the mood of the country has shifted and that the focus of the country has shifted. And Donald Trump bursts through the wall of our lives every day, sometimes multiple times a day, almost certainly forcing this next election to be about Trump and tariffs. So they're going to take their shots at Carney. And maybe that'll have an effect. I mean, you can't open a window without being hit in the face with 2 or 3 conservative negative ads on Carney these days. But ultimately, if the Conservatives are going to win, and if Pierre Poilievre is going to win this election, which we imagine is coming very quickly, he's going to have the right answer on Trump, not just the right attack on Carney.
I think that particularly, Corey, and correct me if I'm wrong, over the past few weeks, there has been like a tacit acknowledgement of that. The Conservatives, they're putting way more policy in the window about what they would do to counter Trump, but they are still going very hard at Carney. Do they think that the messaging on Carney ultimately will be successful for them, or is the runway perhaps, short?
Well, you have to go after your opponents in a political race, and you have to try to define them. And I think the most sensible thing for them to do is what you see them doing, and trying to associate the new guy with the old regime as best you can. Now, that's a little more challenging than it would be if it was a member of the cabinet. Like, while Carney is clearly a Liberal and clearly has ties as an economic advisor, etc., it's not the same level of intimacy as you would have with like a Chrystia Freeland taking over the helm. So I think it's a little heavier lift with him as a candidate than it would be for some of the others that it could have been. That said, I think they're on the right track with the attacks on Brookfield and moving jobs to the United States. And I think that's really the attack that has gotten the most traction of the ones that they've tried on over the last few weeks. So I expect you'll see more of that. I think one of the challenges, though, is going to be, and you saw a little bit of it in that clip, is that there's a lot of edge with how Poilievre communicates, and he's gotten where he is in politics by having that brass knuckles approach. It's the role he played in the Harper government. It's the role that he's played, as an opposition leader. And I wonder if for some of those female voters in particular,
what's going on
who
in
are
here?
really animated by being opposed to Trump, if that doesn't sound a little too Trumpian. And I think it's going to be a delicate.
Why are people all focused on Trump? This is Trump. Okay, are you ready? Trump in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so when a liberal does that, it's like so in your face, and you can't like put a word in. But at least Trump stops yelling about what he's threatening to do, and then he waits for you to see how you're going to react. So this is Trump. He's a narcissist. He's extremely big-headed. His forehead is powerfully swollen, and he makes people in fear. He always has, because he's always had a ton of paper. He's got more paper, so he can push people around. He can bully people, but people get scared. Now, this is this liberal government that's so extreme woke that if you try to say something to them that they don't like, they're all going to band together. They're all going to get in your face. They're all going to start throwing insults at you. Now, yeah, I guess the as you said, that the tax thing does come in effect in a couple of minutes. But what's happened here in BC in my province is absolute bullshit, because these people just continue to let the drugs flow. There was a house that blew up in Langley last week, and it poofed like it was gone. And the houses next door were all like, the vinyl siding was all melted off. One of the person that was cooking brownies in the kitchen of that house, or maybe the side kitchen, one of the person's wives passed away, and the two other guys that came out of the house with their cooking aprons on had nothing on their bodies. The skin was removed, and nothing happened. Last Monday, I came home from the conservative AGM, and I was attacked violently by a junkie, and he bit my finger. He tried to bite my finger off. That evening, I got a phone call from one of my friends who's a VPD officer. But he got stabbed. Like a cop got stabbed. And we continue to just let people out of jail. There's no consequences for nothing. And all these people can do is focus on what Trump said. I'm sorry, friends. We've either got to all just sort of pick up and get out of Canada, or something like Carney's not going to do anything. I don't really think he's going to do anything more than what Pierre is going to do. I think Pierre may do a little bit more than what Carney's going to do, but we don't know until it all happens, because it's all just word salad until then. Yeah, they're all friends with all those. When you got super amounts of money and you're not good looking, and you have the ability to go hang out with these rich pervert old men. I've known some of them. I met my first old rich pervert dude back in 1997, and he was going to and from Thailand, and then he was coming home and showing us young guys all these pictures of these like 15-year-old chicks that he was taking out for dinners. Never showed any other pictures, but the way he was talking about it, I knew what the hell he was doing. It's disgusting. These old men need to just be like what my buddy said last week at Gastown. See a rope? Get her some rope. There's a tree over there. Just put them up like they used to in Gastown. Just hang them up there, and then put a thing around their neck and say, this is what happens to pedophiles. That's what we do. Anyways, enough of that.
To get those attack messages out without having a tone that is too closely associated.
The BC NDP is not doing anything.
I think the main opponent of
Where are you from, John?
Which is Donald Trump. So I think you're going to see
Mr.
liberals
Coco,
trying
where are you from?
To put that frame on him that, well, he looks and sounds a lot like Trump, but and you're going to see the conservatives try to say, well, he's a lot like Trudeau, and whoever wins that framing exercise, I think we'll do well in the election.
It's interesting that Corey says that, because that's the exact set of ads, Kathleen, that are out right now. Literally, the Liberal Party has an ad out that kind of has Trump and Poilievre, and they're side by side, and they're trying to send that exact message. And then the series of ads the Conservatives have out are exactly what we heard Pierre Poilievre essentially deliver in that message to the rally. Your thoughts on sort of that framing?
Yeah, well, I really think the Conservatives have to do a number of things, like Corey pointed out. They obviously have to continue to attack Carney, but they also have to put a more positive message out. And the other ad that the Conservatives have out right now is a new French ad. And you can see that Poilievre has spent a lot of time improving his French. And his message in this latest French ad is really a different tone, a tone that we haven't seen before.
They're talking about... They're talking about how they need to, what the Conservatives need to do, and they put a lot of time into Pierre's French speaking. Fucking Carney can't even drop 18 words in a row in French. Like, this is what this CTV bullshit's about.
more gentler, a bit more sophisticated, less kind of attack dog.
Prime
I think
Minister,
the challenge
I love
you
it.
see in the
CM
latest
Prime Minister.
Carney's attack that you saw in his
I
rally
love
today
it.
in London
The Prime
is that he's
Minister.
trying to say that this move is sneaky about replacing Trudeau with Carney. And that harkens back to a very similar call that Donald Trump did last summer when Joe Biden stepped down and they replaced her in a democratic process with Kamala Harris. And I think if Pierre Poilievre continues to use that kind of, it's sneaky, it's delegitimate, that's a bad look for him because it actually aligns him with a Trump-style kind of communication strategy. Listen, the Conservatives have to pound away at change. I think that line that you heard that you played about that, don't give them a fourth mandate, I think that's probably their most successful line of attack because people might be reminded that they're tired of the Liberals or they just want to say, hey, let's give somebody else a chance, a different party a chance. But when they try to accuse the Liberals of being sneaky or Carney kind of usurping power, that is a very Trumpian-style communication strategy.
This again, they're just talking about Trump. They're saying that the Liberals have bleeped up like for 18 billion years in a row, and they continue to give money to bullshit parties to like build poop signs in Kazakhstan. Like, just the bullshit happens. I don't like this. I don't like whoever this lady is. It's bullshit. Shut up.
And it will backfire. And Corey pointed out the
it'll
demographic
backfire. It'll
issue
backfire.
around women.
She knows.
And let me be very clear. The Conservatives have a demographic issue with women 18 plus and men, older men. And that kind of
Holy
aggressive.
shit, she is a mess. I was just at the Conservative AGM last week in Nanaimo, and false.
Style is pushing women away from them. And when they see alternatives like Carney, like Jagmeet Singh, they're going to be more attracted to them because they don't like that kind of Trumpian pound that Poilievre has been doing.
It's interesting because the way in which Poilievre delivered his message worked so well when the forces, like everyone was fighting in Canada, were within, right? There was a lot of unhappiness and people were genuinely upset at the way the government had handled things, and understandably so in many different circumstances. It just lands differently when the enemy is from outside.
Yeah.
It feels like today.
A bunch of threads come together. I mean, first of all, when Justin Trudeau was suffering the lowest approval ratings of any leader we'd seen in decades, then his edge, Pierre Poilievre's edge being directed at Trudeau was rewarded by voters. Yep. But now that doesn't necessarily seem to fit the moment. But I just can't echo Kathleen enough. And I think this is a big challenge for the Conservatives as they try to re-engineer themselves, their campaign, and their leader around this new dynamic. Just you cannot present yourself as the anti-Trump answer for Canada if you channel Trump, if you sound and give off Trump vibes. And, you know, tigers have stripes, not spots. And you have to ask, does Pierre Poilievre, the politician, have it within him to make that shift and that change? Can he go from stripes to spots? I'm not sure we've seen that flexibility and that agility in his political.
Do you think Conservatives believe, Corey, that they have to, or that it's the chattering class kind of making that determination?
Talking head idiots.
Well, look, I think there is, for the sort of Laurentian elite, you know, part of the world, there's a lot of appeal. I know I'm feeling more like a charter member every day, but there's a lot of appeal to a Carney type resume. Like, so I do think there is, a support base there. And I think that kind of voter is long been attracted to the Liberal Party. So I don't think that's a new phenomenon, and I don't think it's something that Conservatives, are going to have a lot of difficulty overcoming. You know, people who feel that way tend to be in downtown Toronto, where the Conservatives don't do particularly well. It's more, how are these things landing in the suburbs that I think is more telling. I think the other challenge the Conservatives have, which I really feel for them, is forces from outside the country who are, providing endorsements and things. Like, I feel like every time Elon Musk puts out a tweet in support in support of Poilievre, he goes down a point. Like, it's so. Like, I think they probably would like to have them help less, if that's what their objective is.
Okay, I'm gonna pause us there. We'll be back throughout the rest of the hour. I want to head over straight to the floor because my colleague Mike Couture, does have a member of caucus who is endorsing endorsing Chrystia Freeland. Mike, over to you.
Thanks so much for that, Vashi. Yeah, here with James Maloney. Mr. Maloney, tell me a little bit about how this campaign has gone for Ms. Freeland and why you think that she may be able to win it tonight.
Look, I think the campaign has gone remarkably well from Christia's perspective. It's a short campaign, which means it was an intense campaign. She's worked incredibly hard. She's crossed the country literally and virtually. She's gone to every riding in the country, and she's reached people in even some of the remote parts of the country. And the reception she's had everywhere she's been has been extraordinary. So the energy is high. She's very positive. Her team is very positive and enthusiastic and optimistic, as am I.
What do you feel about the get out the vote machine that you've needed for this? How has that worked? Do you think it has been effective? Because that is really what all of these things come down to.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it's been effective. It's a unique campaign, too, because of the voting format and, again, because of the time frame. People had to do things in a very compressed period of time, but I think it's worked very well. The voting process is online, worked, it was efficient. I was able to do it without any challenges. It meant you could vote from your home regardless of where you lived. It meant you didn't have to travel to go vote. But the campaign, we had people across the country, and when you're talking about getting out the vote, you can do that virtually too. Yeah. Like, you don't need physically people driving in Northern Ontario or Northern Saskatchewan having to pick people up in their car and driving them to a polling station. You can do it on phone, you can do it on Zoom, and it's been very effective. And it gave people an opportunity to vote who might not otherwise have been able to do so.
She's been proudly boasting that her nickname given by Donald Trump is Killer. Do you think that'll be the same thing for tonight?
I think so. I hope so. I believe so. Look, I think that's a badge of honor. It's one of the reasons I supported Chrystia Freeland. She was our point person when, we renegotiated the trade deal in 2016. And the reason he calls her names is because he knows that she's a tough adversary. And, privately, he would probably admit he doesn't want to deal with her again for that very reason. So, yeah, it's a very apt nickname, but I think it's one that she wears with pride. It's one I think she should wear with pride.
Okay, I appreciate that. James Maloney, MP for the Liberals for Etobicoke Lakeshore. Vashi, send it back to you.
All right, Mike, thank you so much. And we will continue checking in with Mike on the floor. That MP, of course, endorsing Chrystia Freeland. We formally heard from Melanie Joly, who has endorsed Mark Carney. I'm going to throw it to Karina Gold, making an entrance, taking some questions from reporters just a few moments ago. Let's take a listen.
What are you hearing from your supporters?
Oh, they're so excited. I'm hearing so much excitement from across the country. Look, today is a great day for the Liberal Party of Canada, and it's a good day for Canada.
I know you said that you have the other candidates serve in your cabinet. Would you serve in one of their cabinets as well?
Look, if I was asked to serve, my position is that, I want to serve Canadians. So if I was asked to, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Well, enjoy the day. Very excited. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, very exciting, and it's a great day for the Liberal Party and for Canadians. So thank you.
Thank you, Karina.
All right, that's Liberal leadership contendant and former government House Leader Karina Gold making her entrance into the room. The countdown is on. That announcement just under a couple of hours away. I'll take one more commercial break, and more of our special coverage is just ahead.
Your dream vacation plans probably don't include hepatitis A or B, but many common travel activities can put you at risk of acquiring these two serious liver diseases. So plan on talking to your doctor about Twinrix, because you are a traveler.
Bathfitter knows what you're looking for. The perfect style for your bath remodel with the look of tile you want. New textures, shapes, and styles. Time to set a date. It just fits. Go to bathfitter.com to book your free consultation.
Limits aren't there to stop us. They're there to challenge us, test us. So when we push past those limits, we discover how far we can really go. The Jeep No Limits event is back. Get up to $8,800 in total incentives on Jeep Wrangler, or up to $6,700 in total incentives on Jeep Grand Cherokee, or lease a Jeep Compass North for $99 a week for 54 months with $1,095 down at 2.49%, 4.06% APR. Jeep, there's only one.
It's like a shower for your nose. This thing is amazing.
Navage Flush is sailing through the nasal passages to help clear congestion by quickly sucking out mucus, allergens, and germs.
There's no other product out there like it.
Navage, clean nose, healthy life.
Explore the world the Viking way. From the quiet comfort of elegant small ships with no children and no casinos. We actually have reinvented ocean voyages, designing all-inclusive experiences for the thinking person. Viking, voted world's best by both Travel and Leisure and Condé Nast Traveler. Learn more at Viking.com.
You brush and floss, but did you know? Listerine kills up to 99.9% of germs and destroys 5 times more plaque above the gum line than floss, contributing to a clean, healthy mouth. Help complete your routine with Listerine.
Fire it up!
Welcome back to our nation's capital and CTV special coverage of the Liberal leadership race and announcement that the new leader of the party, I should say, and the new prime minister, at least for a little while, of this country, will be announced in just about 90 minutes' time. The formal part of the program here at this convention of sorts gets underway in about 10 minutes' time. As part of that program, we will hear from former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien, as well as outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. I am here
check
with
out my
Kathleen
new,
Munn, Scott Reid, and Corey
I
tonight.
changed
As we
the,
look ahead, the Prime Minister,
the
Kathleen,
YouTube,
is
page
they're going to show a video,
to
and then he's also
Minister.
going to get introduced and deliver a speech. Talk a little bit about, like, it's been so overshadowed by the fact that, you know, we might go to war, and I say that tongue-in-cheek, but still, right? Like this crazy threat that we are facing, that we've barely even taken a moment to say, like, oh wow, it's nearly a decade, and he's on his way out.
Yeah, he hasn't had an exit where he's gotten the tributes that you would normally expect for a prime minister who's really, you know, last decade has dealt with so many important things, you know, whether it's COVID, whatever, but his legacy hasn't been unpacked in the same way. Maybe we'll see it tonight. Maybe the speech will touch on that. Maybe the video.
A bunch of people
but
just
he
left.
hasn't had, quote unquote, the normal due that even any exiting leader would normally have. And there won't be time for that because the House will not be likely returning. We won't have those usual tributes in the House. But obviously, you know, when will be the time that we look back on Trudeau's legacy? It could be years from now. But there are some things like the Canada Child Benefit, obviously lifting kids out of poverty, the child care agreements throughout the country that really he does deserve some credit for. But because he didn't choose his own hubris, led him to not leave earlier, not in 2024, not in 2023, even 2022, when you go back for the first calls back to Senator Percy Down, who wrote that letter. Really
Back in the day.
Back in the day, in the Wayback Time Machine. He has not been granted that that kind of due. The one thing he has been given is a massive gift, I would say, though, and that gift has been from Donald Trump, that he has left on this left in these last final days since January 6th, where he announced that he would resign. He has had the opportunity to travel the entire globe, meet with leaders, you know, on behalf of Ukraine, on others, and have this massive fight with the U.S. around the threat to our economic sovereignty.
I think exactly that is what sticks out to me, Scott, that the story of his exit written 2 months ago would be that he waited until the worst possible moment at that time for his party and was dragged kicking and screaming out. And now it is, you know, these last, particularly, let's say 6 weeks, have almost, you know, I would imagine changed a lot of the end of the story for him.
I think it's of tremendous importance. I mean, we can talk about, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have tributes and people to run videos about him? That's not what he wants. What he wants is to go out a working prime minister, and he had moments, even in this past week, facing off against Trump, speaking on behalf of the country about the confrontation that we're having with the United States and the White House. And he has looked solid and strong, and people who did not like him, did not vote for him, and did not admire him have been nevertheless handing him his applause. So that's important. The other thing that's important from my perspective is, you know what a bad legacy is? A bad legacy is walking away from your party and having it get absolutely monstered in the next election. Right. It would be seeing the party return to the third place position that he had actually inherited it from. If now, thanks to his departure, and now thanks to the arrival of Trump and the changing issue set, suddenly it looks like the party's competitive. That is good for him, historically speaking.
I got 1 minute left. Last word to you, Corey.
Well, I would not be very happy that this tribute's happening if I were Mark Carney. Like, we can't miss you if you don't go away, as the saying goes. Like, look, there, you know, people can say, Trudeau has, had, done a little better in the last few weeks. Nobody in Canada is kicking down the door to get him to stay. He's still one of the most unpopular political leaders in the history of modern polling in Canada. So, look, as we talked about earlier, the positioning of the Conservatives is going to try to tie these two men together. And, the Liberals are making it a lot easier for them tonight by having them share a stage. In, years gone past, you would have done a tribute to the outgoing leader one day, and then you'd have a day for the vote, and you do it on the next day to try to have some separation. Putting them right next to each other in the program, I think, is not the best.
Well, don't worry. Jean Chrétien will divide them in the program, and that is coming up this hour. I'll take a quick commercial break. We're back in a moment with more coverage from downtown Ottawa.
Now I'm in my 50s, I'm all about making the right choices, like eating right and staying healthy. And another thing I can choose is how to look after my family.
Interesting. Why isn't, who's here? 9 people are here. So if you're here, say, hey, hey. Let's go. Nowhere. Anybody got any questions for me? Throw them in the chat.
Of them are going to even come close to Carney. That means somewhere in the next week, Justin Trudeau will step down as Prime Minister, finally, and Carney will become the Prime Minister. What does that really mean? I don't think it means that very much. Carney and Trudeau have very similar views on things. Carney's are a little more sophisticated than Trudeau's. He speaks them in a more adult tone, finally. But for instance, on the carbon tax, Carney just wants to take Justin Trudeau's carbon tax, which Carney has been advising him for years to continue increasing. Carney wants to take that carbon tax and hide it in corporate costs.
Correct.
So that it'll raise the prices for consumers at the retail level. But it won't be attacked on the way it is at the gas pump. And they're hoping then, in the Liberal brains trust, that you won't mind. Well, you'll mind exactly the same way you minded when the carbon tax was charged on the trucks that were bringing your groceries to the grocery store, and groceries went up by about 35% in the last 2 years. Of course you're going to notice. Of course you're going to mind. But that's the kind of thinking that the Liberals are all about. Oh, Mark Carney's going to save us, because he's smarter than Justin at doing the same thing. Take a look at pipelines. Carney has said, yes, I'm in favor of pipelines. But if you look really, really carefully at most of his statements and most of his policies, he almost never mentions the word oil. He is first and foremost an environmentalist. He is a firm believer in the climate alarmism. And he wants very much to end oil. He doesn't speak much about oil. When he's talking about building a stronger Canadian economy to face off against Trump, he almost never mentions oil, which is our #1 export. And yes, one time in Kelowna, about a month ago, he said, we could use our emergency powers as a federal government to build pipelines east and west in Canada, so that we no longer have to ship most of our oil through the United States. But then the next day, when he was asked in Quebec whether that meant he would use the emergency powers to force a pipeline through Quebec, he said, oh, of course not. No, I would never do that. Never ever force Quebec. That is a typical Liberal response. You say one thing in Quebec, you say another thing in the rest of Canada, and you hope nobody notices. That's par for the course for the Liberals. So when Mark Carney replaces Justin Trudeau, we're going to have more of the same from the Liberals. And the other thing I think is going to happen is you're going to see the cozy relationship between the Liberals and the CBC get even cozier. 2 weeks ago, Pascal Saint-Onge, who's the Heritage Minister, who's in charge of the CBC, said that the CBC was absolutely essential to our national security.
Wow.
Not our national culture, not our national identity. Yes, she mentioned those two.
National security.
But she said specifically, in so many words, the CBC is essential to our national security. I suppose if we suddenly start finding Russian bombers overhead, we're going to send CBC reporters out to hector them and moralize about it until they turn around and go home. It's ridiculous. And now this week, Melanie Joly, who is the Foreign Affairs Minister, said the CBC is as essential to Canadian democracy and Canadian security as Parliament and the courts. The CBC is such an essential institution in Canada. We cannot possibly think about defunding it or even changing its funding a little. In fact, Melanie Joly said we should double the CBC's budget to about $3 billion a year. She said, this is not a conservative or a liberal issue. Of course it is. When was the last time you watched the CBC and they had anything nice to say about conservatives? Yes, the CBC sometimes during scandals are very good at digging up dirt on the Liberals. On the blackface scandal for Trudeau, on the wee cherries, on lots of others. They have done good work. But the instant the writs are dropped in an election, they circle their wagons around the divine right to rule Liberal Party, and they do everything they can to besmirch and smear the Conservatives so the Liberals will win again. And we're going to see more of that after this weekend, once Mark Carney gets to be the leader of the Liberal Party. For Post Media, I'm Lorne Gunter.
Sorry, friends. Sorry, friends.
Carney gets to be the leader of the Liberal Party. For Post Media, I'm Lorne Gunter.
Sorry, friends. Sorry, friends.
To now, they're different circumstances.
Good
so,
point.
yeah.
Man-eater, right?
That was her campaign theme song.
I love it. I love it. Her problem, if there's no Mark Carney in the mix, her problem, of course, is she was there the whole time.
Fuck, I can't
it's hard for them
stand
to change
that.
the story, and they have to change the story.
I'm sorry,
I know
my
what the
friends.
Conservatives are saying about Mr. Carney. He was there too. Is that Lloyd Axworthy there? I think it is.
I think it is one of her higher profile endorsements.
Absolutely. That's a very, very serious, obviously, international liberal voice. With Mr. Carney, it's easier to say they are changing the channel and moving on from Mr. Trudeau, even though the Conservatives continually try to tie him to
And look at that,
Trudeau.
Graham, in the debates, when I asked the final question, what separates you from Justin Trudeau? She didn't even answer the question, and that was her chance to really stand up and speak and say, I am different from this government. I am trying to separate myself from the former Prime Minister, but she totally ignored it.
Actually, it was a great last question. I thought it was so interesting, and you actually went back to it.
I did.
To get her to give an answer, because she really, didn't want to at first, which is fascinating considering, Graham, the way it all started.
And I don't want to overemphasize it, but I am reminded of the rush to Martin in that leadership race. It was so obvious where it's going. Maybe not as strong here to the rush to Carney, but clearly given the cabinet backing and the establishment backing he has, it would be a massive shocker if she were to win today. That being said, the last Liberal convention I covered was way back.
Was that Stéphane Dion?
It was Stéphane Dion in 2006. Nobody predicting that. A little different scenario here.
But the question becomes, if she does not win tonight, which we don't expect but still possible, will she be brought in under the Carney team?
And let's listen to her opening message to Liberals gathered here in Ottawa.
The last Liberal convention I covered was way back.
Was that Stéphane Dion?
It was Stéphane Dion. 2006. Nobody predicting that. A little different scenario.
Good evening.
The question becomes,
Bonsoir.
we don't expect that still possible.
I want to start by thanking the amazing people who have volunteered on my campaign and donated to my campaign. Merci beaucoup. Je vous apprécie.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for all your help.
Good evening. Et je sais.
And I know that we all want to thank the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau this evening as well.
There is a remarkable wave of patriotism across our country. Canadians are ready to stand for Canada. Canadians are ready to fight for Canada. And I know all of us have one message for Donald Trump tonight. Canada will never be the 51st state. Canadians are ready to stand for Canada. Canadians are ready to fight for Canada. And I know all of us have Oui, c'est ça. Partout au pays.
Across the country, Canadians are ready to fight for Canada. We're ready to defend Canada. And Canada will never become the 51st U.S. state.
Just in December, people were writing off our Liberal Party. But tonight, we all know that we can, we must, and we will.
Is she fucking talking about Trump?
Pierre Poilievre and his maple syrup mega.
She's the most Naziistic person, like dictator, allied with Ukraine people that shouldn't be on our. Is she fucking talking about Trump?
Oui, on va gagner.
We are going to win.
The Liberal Party is the party that has always fought for Canada, and together we will win. Vive le Canada!
Ukraine people that
Long live Canada.
Are those her children? No, she has 3 kids beside her, but there's no husband. Does anybody know if she's got kids?
All right, that's former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland delivering her opening remarks to the crowd assembled. Next up, Karina Gould is going to make her way in. Grandma, I'll start with you. As she, the former government House leader, does. What do you make of her campaign?
I thought it was great. Like, I think really she introduced herself to Canadians who don't necessarily know her. She's a long shot to win, but she was a voice of the left, if you will, the left of center, which I think a lot of Liberals were looking for. Not a lot of them, not everybody agrees that they need to shift back to the center. And just before we move on with more Karina Gould talk, I will point out to everybody, this is a small thing but important. This room looks amazing. It looks like an energized Liberal Party. That's the snapshot that they want. It doesn't look moribund. It doesn't look like they're on the ropes because they don't feel like they are anymore. And as a television production, at least so far, even though the votes haven't been counted, it looks like they're in for a fight. And just a few weeks ago, they were not.
Interestingly, some behind-the-scenes gossip. This is the smaller room of the rooms that they could get at the Shaw Centre. When they initially booked it, they were worried about even being able to fill this room.
Right.
And now their demand outstripped the tickets they had available. Like their own party. Somebody just before we went on air said the last time they were here for their Christmas party, it felt like a wait.
Yes.
And now it's anything but. That was like 3 months ago, not even.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I want to talk about Karina Gould before we get to her. I'm keeping an eye on her, but this is the youth of this party as well. One of the things that this party needs to do is get that 18 to 35 vote. And if I were Mark Carney, if he wins tonight, I would bring her in. I would bring her in a big position because, let's be frank, he's an older white male.
Yeah.
He may have that vote. When Justin Trudeau won in 2015, he won it because of legalization of pot and bringing in that 35. It has now gone to the Conservatives if you look at the numbers, and they need a way to bring that back. This might be that person who could do it for them if Mark Carney takes it tonight and plays those cards properly.
All right, Hannah and Graham, thank you so much. We're going to listen in live to Karina Gould.
Good evening, everyone. Today is a wonderful day for the Liberal Party of Canada.
Great day for the Liberal Party of Canada. I want to start by saying thank you to each and every one of you. You participated, you joined the party, you voted, you volunteered, you made donations, and the Liberal Party of Canada is strong because of each and every one of you. C'est quoi le Parti libéral?
What's the Liberal Party? Well, it's the members, it's the supporters across the country. It's a strong party. Our party is always there to defend Canada and to defend Canadians as well.
Our party is made of incredible Canadians who care so deeply about this country, and it is always the Liberal
They
Party
don't even
of
give her a
Canada
stage
that
to
stands
stand.
up for Canada and stands up for Canadians. And this leadership campaign has shown that there are so many Canadians willing to stand strong for Canada. Et moi, je suis plein.
And I'm very inspired because of you, the members of our party. You're here to stand up for Canada.
Am I even on?
And through it all, we have remembered who we are as Liberals. I am proud to be a Liberal in Canada.
You are proud to let girls dress like boys
Je
in
suis fière
the
d'être
elementary school.
I'm proud to be a Liberal here in Canada.
Sorry, I don't like
And
that.
let's remember, we are the party of healthcare. We are the party of the Charter. We are the party of the Maple Leaf. We are the party of multiculturalism. We are the party of reconciliation. We are the party that fights climate change. And we are the party of national child care. Et c'est grâce à vous.
And it's thanks to you.
Is anybody there
thanks
still?
To the members
No one's talking in the
and
chat.
Liberal supporters that always have the best ideas for Canada.
This country who dream big for Canada so that Liberal governments can deliver for Canadians. So tonight, whatever the result, we leave here proud Liberals, proud Canadians, and united so that we can take the fight to Pierre Poilievre, win
You're
the
not-
next election, and stand up for Canada.
You're not united, you're fighting amongst yourselves.
Merci tout le monde.
Thank you, everyone.
This was
Thank
all
you.
such a waste of time.
All right, that's the third of 4 candidates we are slated to hear from tonight. The last one we await is Mark Carney. I am here now with Anne McGrath, Principal Secretary to NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, Shakir Chambers, Conservative Strategist and Vice President at Oyster Group, and Brian Gallant.
Wow, look at
former
his
Liberal
wife
Premier
looks
of
like a
Canada,
dude.
Now CEO of Space
Is that
Canada.
his wife?
Hi, guys.
Hello.
We're watching Mark Carney, Shakir make his way into the room.
Oh,
I think
she's
the
a
question
very
on the
quiet-
mind of a lot of Canadians who are maybe not in this room is the degree to which
She's never-
this is a fait accompli. You've been walking around talking to people. What's your gut tell you?
I think it's over. I think everybody knows Mark Carney will be the next leader of the party. So they should just see what he says right now. But I think for the Conservatives, they've been gearing up for this. They know Mark Carney is going to be the next leader. So let's get it on and see how Pierre challenges Mark Carney as the leader of the party.
Brian, what are you looking for in the I mean, it's
Thanks, guys.
pre-comments, it's
I'm
an
just
introductory
like,
moment for
these
Mark
people
Carney,
work so hard in the Liberal Party to be a part of,
for him in the
and this
message
guy
he delivers
comes
to the
in and
room
just,
and outside it.
you know, they all
I
talk
wonder
about
what
like how
Shakir
white
just
men
said
are
at
like
one.
bad.
Probably gonna be a little-
This guy just walks in and takes
a
their
little
job.
pettier during his speech, but I think for me one of the biggest things is to see how the crowd reacts to all the other candidates, and more specifically, if we think Mr. Carney's going to win, then how people. Will
I'm
react
eating
to
a great
him,
traditional
all the crowd
roast
supporting
beef.
others will-
And we'll listen in live right now.
Toast, gravy,
All right.
potatoes.
Hello, everyone.
Watch him hash French.
I'd like to ask a couple of questions.
Here,
Who's ready?
Two.
Who's ready to stand up for Canada?
Qui est prêt?
Who's ready to help the Liberal Party win the most important election of our lives? We have to do this.
This is scary.
Christa's ready. Frank's ready. Karina's ready.
But I am the best.
Everyone in this room's ready to do that.
C'est ça. We have to win this election.
He's a leader. He's a
The
true
big
leader.
election. And we will stand shoulder to shoulder together to do it. Because the stakes have never been higher.
You're a capitalistic pig,
You
bro.
have just
Oh,
heard
look
from
at
my
Christina
colleagues
Freeland's
what
husband.
we stand for as the Liberal Party. The
Oh, could you-
health care, child care,
Oh, man.
opportunity. We have made
Something's wrong
this
with him.
the greatest country in the world. And now our neighbors want to take us. No way.
He's such
No
a-
way.
No, we'll just give it to them.
Impossible.
We'll just give it to them. That's
This
what you do.
party has more than quadrupled
For
its
the right-
membership
for the right
in
price.
the past 2 months. More than 300,000
That's what happens when you bring 5 million people in from Punjab.
Old liberals, and my definition of old has changed, but old liberals coming back, members who've never been part of the party before,
Yeah, that's true.
united with one purpose, which is to make Canada even greater for tous les Canadiens et Canadiennes.
Greater for all Canadians.
Dernier mot. Whatever the result tonight, I'll be proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with my colleague candidat, working with you, with
he's-
Liberal
he's
volunteers
pissed.
across this country in service of Canadians. Merci tout le monde. À bientôt. Vive le Canada.
Thank you and long live Canada.
Introductory comments there from the final
Did he
Liberal
just speak
leadership
Spanish?
candidate,
Viva,
Mark
like,
Carney,
long
as
live?
the program formally gets underway here, and we will be with you throughout that program and into, of course,
Well,
the
there's that
formal
whack-tard chick.
announcement of the leader
I
this
can't
evening.
stand
Anne
her.
McGrath
Oh my
is sitting
God, bless her.
to my right. Anne, I wanted to get your impression on what we just heard from Mark Carney there. A bit of an extension of what he's been
Someone's
saying
on
at some
the
of his
stage.
events, right? Just making it about the upcoming election, in his view, the sort of characterization of it as
Someone's on the stage.
Election in a crisis, a very significant
Yep.
crisis.
Yeah, totally positioning himself and the party for the next campaign, which we expect
What's
to
going
come
on?
fairly soon. I think that he is, probably
She's got an
anticipating a
eagle
first
feather.
ballot victory. Probably needs a first ballot victory, and I think that. I think that people, other parties, will be looking at
They're
how
ignoring
big
her.
the number is. This is definitely a love-in.
And I want to ask you about, I'll ask you that as we talk about the opposition in a bit. I just also wanted to get your reaction. I thought one of the most interesting, sometimes pictures tell you a lot, right? In the enthusiasm with which
Wow,
Mr. Freeland is
reconciliation.
clapping
These
for
chicks
Mark
are just
Carney.
talking
Yes, I
right
thought
over
that was
this native
interesting
lady.
as well as her intro music was quite interesting.
Maneater, her campaign theme song. Shakir, your thoughts on, I guess, the nature of what we've heard a lot from Carney lately, which is similar to what we're hearing from the Conservatives, right? In immediate framing around an election and the significance of this election versus other ones.
Yeah, I think for the Liberals, obviously they want to look forward to the next election, but I think on the Conservative side, they're actually saying, look back at the past 9 years. This is the Liberal Party of Canada. Sure, you're changing the leader, but it's still the party that over the last 9 years, whether it's doubling the debt, whether it's, breaking the immigration system,
going
that's
on?
their narrative, right? Look forward to the election and say what you're going to do against Donald Trump, but let's not forget why we're here. We're here because your prime minister, your leader of the party had to step down because he was so unpopular because of the policies he was putting forth.
Brian, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that
Who
the
is this lady?
Conservatives for 2 years, if not longer, have really just owned everything that would have gone out. They were winning almost every news cycle, and really most likely because of two major things happening. Trudeau announcing his resignation, of course, but then second, Trump in saying the things that he's saying that obviously all of the speakers tonight have addressed in their own way. So there's no question that that's going to continue to be the narrative, and it's one that has been very successful.
They're actually
Arguably,
talking
it's still
over
successful.
their-
They're still in the lead in the polls, but given the resignation, given what's going on with Trump, it's gotten a little tighter, and the Liberals feel like they're in a fighting fighting distance at the moment.
Well, they certainly are, according to public opinion polling, right? And I wonder, from the NDP's perspective, it's a similar question to the Conservatives. Like, I
They
think
have
the NDP
two.
also want to remind
You can
people
hear
of
this.
Justin
Like
Trudeau's
this
record
is
in
what
this
you're
election,
watching.
but at the
The
same time, it's hard
CTV
not
is
to put
talking
forward
over
a
the land
message that addresses
recognition.
the massive crisis that we fight, or that we face rather, vis-a-vis Donald Trump.
Absolutely. I think that Donald Trump is a big factor in this campaign. And I think that for us, it's going to be about how do we have a progressive response? How do we have a united Canadian response? But also to put forward some of the more progressive things and not allow this crisis to become an opportunity to dismantle some of the things that are important to Canadians and that we have fought for a long time. So, we can't, people keep saying we're not going to be the 51st state, but that means maintaining a strong public health care system, maintaining childcare, dental care, all of the things that are really important to Canadians, I think, are going to be important to continue to fight for, and not to give those things up as a way of appeasing Donald Trump and the American presidency.
A lot of what's happened, just to follow up with you, in public opinion polling, it's not everyone, but the majority I've looked at, show that a lot of the Liberals' gains have not necessarily, like the Conservatives have gone down, but much of what they've gained has come at the NDP's expense. I guess, how are you internalizing that, and what's the plan going forward?
Well, I have actually seen this picture before. I will remind some people that, when Paul Martin became leader of the Liberal Party, it was also a love-in, and the whole point of his leadership was to wipe out the NDP. And certainly when Stéphane Dion became leader, to everyone's surprise, actually, the NDP dropped to something like 10% the day after that. So it's not unusual in the kind of heat of a leadership for numbers to shift substantially. I think that if Mark Carney is the candidate that wins tonight, he will be a very
I wish they'd pick
leader.
who you want to listen to, because you can't. I'm sorry, people, I can't turn the lady off that's at the stage
really
and this other person talking to
the balance towards investors,
two people talking
and
at the same time,
and corporate elites. And I think that we'll be pointing that out.
But
I think that Canadians,
the people talking shit about Trump are a little bit louder than the native lady.
Left. And so I think that we're going to have to point out that Mark Carney is a conservative Liberal leader with a record that he has to account for. And of course,
they talk
have
like
to remember,
this is all
really
important, but they don't give a shit
he's
about
never
native
held
people.
an elected position before. So he will be running his first campaign as the Liberal leader, having never actually run for election before.
Right into the fire, Brian, right? It will be interesting to see. We get an idea of how the NDP will frame him. We know how the Conservatives are framing him. How different will a campaign be? Which, by the way, I'm hearing could get started in a week and a day from today, versus the leadership race and the sort of scrutiny or lack thereof he's faced during that.
Look, I think Anne makes a lot of good points. One thing I would say is when I actually ran in the leadership myself, I didn't hold a seat. I had been involved in politics and volunteered and all that good stuff.
Does anyone know? Like, this is the horrible thing. CTV knows what they're doing right now.
It's really good practice. It's so Carney certainly has gone through the fire a little bit. It's not the same as a campaign, though. That's a whole other level. There's no question about it. And look,
no, she's talking about all of the native children, or all of our children, and everyone's
Singh
children.
has been in elections, so he certainly knows what to expect. So that's definitely a vulnerability, and that's something I think that the party has been wondering about. And it looks like
we're going to walk together and work together.
It seems like and feels like Carney has done the campaign well enough that Liberals feel
Carney does not look
to give him the position. Obviously, we'll see the results.
Impressed.
But with that, I will say that it is pretty good practice.
He's like, can this lady
and I
please
think
be
he's probably
quiet?
learned a lot over the last few weeks.
Shakir, your thoughts on that?
I think when you look at someone like Mark Carney, I mean, we see the momentum and the change in the polls, but I think those same
Then he got
polls
up
show
the
that
last. He was
a lot
the
of
last
Canadians
person
still
to
don't know
stand
who
up.
he is. And I think there's this kind of myth around Mark Carney, right, where he's
So
kind
who
of
is she,
everything
like-
to everyone, says different things to different
Who
audiences.
was that?
He's been able to get away with that in the leadership race. You know, the people haven't been zeroed in on it. But I think in a general election, he's going to have to be more precise in what he says. There's going to be a lot of questions that I'm not sure he can answer. If one thing we've seen with Mark Carney over the past 2 or 3 weeks is that he's prone to media gaffes, and that's not going to fly in a general election.
I'm going to pause there, and we are going to take a listen into our national anthem.
I encourage you all to sing along with me.
You better fucking sing it right.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land.
Why is she trying to be American?
True patriot love is car ton bras
Whoa.
sait porter l'épée, il sait porter la croix. Ton histoire est
Whoa, look at her
une
husband.
épopée
He's not even singing the
des
anthem.
plus brillants
Maybe he can't speak French.
God keep our land.
Glorious and free. Oh, Canada,
we stand on
God. Get these people off the stage. Are you kidding me? She's actually doing.
Oh, Canada, we stand
She actually did that.
on guard for thee.
She pulled a Mark. My buddy Mark would do that with the Canucks. I can't. Mark, he's a fantastic guy. He's like,
A rendition there of "O Canada" from Miss McLeod. Our senior political correspondent, Mike LeCouture, is on the floor in the middle of all the action. Mike, I can head over to you. I think you got Wayne Long.
it's going to get interesting, my friends. It's going to get interesting. But Dan don't care. Baloney. Yeah, it is.
Result tonight. I'm rolling the dice. I said if Mark Carney wins, I'm going to get back.
Thanks, Arnold.
I'm motivated. I want him to win. I think it looks pretty good. We'll see what happens.
When you consider what you're hearing at the doorstep and in your riding, how are things changing in your mind?
It's unbelievable, the change in momentum. I mean, call myself a veteran. I've been here since 2014, year before 2015's election. I've not seen momentum like this. Even 14. People are coming up, people are calling the office, people are stopping us in the shopping malls and the pedways just saying, look, we know Mark Carney is the right guy to lead our party and to defend our country against Donald Trump. And, you know, I think a lot of people are scared. And Mark Carney's a bit of a security blanket. I mean, he's the smartest guy in the room. He's got the knowledge. He's got the policies. And I think he's just got the right moxie. He's not going to dominate a room. He's not going to, dominate debates. But he
the
knows
money.
what he's doing. And I know Canadians are flocking
And the
to
connections.
him like I've never seen before. St. John Rothsay is alive and electric. And I really am looking forward to a future with Mark Carney.
How do you feel about this, considering you were so public about calling from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to step down to where we are now?
That's why I did it. That's why a group of us did it. We know we needed a change. And Mark, all these candidates, I mean, Karina, Christia, and Frank have all done a great job. But I think Mark has emerged as a true leader for the country, true leader for the Liberal Party.
Yeah.
And that's what we needed. We needed to be re-energized, rebooted. I mean, look at
True
this.
facts.
This is electric. And I'm just excited for the future.
But still, Mark or bust. If it's Ms. Freeland, if it's Ms. Gould, Mr. Bayless, it's either Mark or you're retired.
All my chips are on the table for Mark. It's Mark or bust. But I'm pretty confident we're going to have a Mark Carney as a leader and future Prime Minister of our country.
Appreciate it. Wayne Long,
anytime.
Liberal MP for St. John Rothsay. Vashi, send it back up to you.
Mark Carney's never been a politician.
All right, Mike, thanks so much. That's Mike LeCouture with Wayne Long as a tribute video plays to outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. His
video.
daughter is set to introduce him. We're going to take a listen in as she does so. We anticipate after
Oh, this is going to be
outgoing Prime Minister
horrible, my
speaks, we'll hear
friends.
from
This is
former
going to
Prime
be
Minister
painful.
former Prime Minister
I'm going to do
Jean
this.
Chrétien, that is. Let's take a listen
What
in
is
live.
she wearing? See-through white pants. Like you can see her ass cheeks. Good Lord, God bless this girl.
Hi, everyone.
Oh my Lord, I thought she was a full woman. I thought she was a woman.
I've come here to talk to you about your prime minister, your leader.
What
but
the
to me, it's just dad.
How old is she?
Je crois qu'on sait tous que
I think we all know that being a prime minister is not the easiest job in the world. Long days of work, stress, media attention.
not that easy to be the kid of a prime minister either. I've been trying hard to live the life of a normal teenager, but I think you can imagine it's not that simple of a task. La sécurité, les règles.
Security, rules, drama.
She's 16 years
have
old.
all stopped me feeling free over the past few years. The number of times
She's
who
16.
spoke to me about him as if he wasn't
and
my
her
father.
parents allowed her to dress with those pants and
So
walk
that
on
led me
stage.
to doubt the integrity of some people.
conversations with my dad about the difficult situations I've lived through, and he never failed to make me feel better. He listened, and more than that, I knew he heard me. He understood me because he lived through all that.
Because he's a girl.
The only difference is that back then there was no social media. Imagine constantly seeing your dad or even news about him as you scroll through your feed. I gotta say, I'm looking forward to seeing more of him at home and less of him online. But I would never trade the last few years for anything. Dad, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud to have seen you fight for our country, for what you believe in, for
She's
what
16
we
years old.
in
I can't
this room
watch
believe
this.
in.
You put your
Fier
daughter
de
in
t'avoir
a
vu.
white pair of see-through pants and prayed at her on
Fier de
stage.
ta-
I
Proud
can't watch
to have
this.
seen you fight for those in need.
I'm really grateful to have lived these experiences and grateful to those around me who have made it even just a little bit easier. Je suis tellement chanceuse d'avoir pu vivre.
I'm so lucky to have been able to experience so much, to meet so many extraordinary people, to see so many beautiful things and places.
Memories I've made, it be at Harrington Lake, on official trips, or even just at home. And I'm really looking forward to making some new memories of a different kind. My brothers and I have shared our dad with you for the past 12 years. Now we're taking him back. But before we do, I guess you can have him one last time. Please welcome your Prime Minister, my dad, Justin Trudeau.
Bonsoir, mes amis. Bonsoir, tout le monde. Hello, my friends. You know, as I look out across this room, I have just one question. How's the Liberal Party doing tonight? Ella
Grace, I know that these last few years haven't been easy for Sav, Adrian, yourself. Thank you for having been so patient with me, even when I was stressed, when I was traveling too much, when I couldn't think about anything other than work. But please know that in the most difficult times, you inspired me. You gave me courage. You reminded me that I should focus on what was really important and not what was just urgent. Being Prime Minister of this country has been the honor of my life, but I'm so looking forward to redevoting myself to my most important role, that of father. I'm proud of the three of you, and I love you above all.
Now, sit down. Now, I can imagine that you're all expecting me to stand up and talk about all that we've accomplished together. And don't get me wrong, I am damn proud of what we've done over these past 10 years for the middle class and people working hard to join it. But tonight is about our future as a party,
for the
as
middle
a country.
class and for all those who are trying to join.
Now, I know that we as Liberals, as a government, often get criticized by our friends for not taking a victory lap after we get something big done. We do something really big, and then we move on right away to the next challenge. Because as progressives, as Liberals, we know there is always more to do. So it is important to take the time to reflect on and share the big successes. But not tonight. Not tonight, because when liberals gather, we're always focused on just one thing: the work that still needs to be done to build a country that stays worthy of all Canadians. And simply put, that's the work of a lifetime for each and every one of us. It's very simple. Liberals are dedicated to making this country even better, not because we think it's broken, but because we have an opportunity and therefore a responsibility to ensure that Canada stays the best country on earth. Now, these past 10 years have been challenging. Crisis after crisis has been thrown at Canadians. But through every crisis, Canadians have shown who they are. We've pulled together. We've stood up for each other, and every single time, we've emerged even stronger. And now, as Canadians face from our neighbor an existential challenge, an economic crisis, Canadians are showing exactly what we are made of.
Your delusion. Oh.
Canadians are showing what it is that makes us Canadians. Not by defining ourselves by who we're not, but by proudly embracing who we are. We're a country that knows that standing up for everyone's fundamental rights is the only way to protect our freedom. We're a country that believes no one should be left behind and that everyone should have a real and fair shot at success. We're a country that refuses to accept the false choice between a strong economy and a healthy environment. We're a country that embraces reconciliation and Indigenous peoples as true partners because it is the only path to a shared, prosperous future.
We are a country that promotes its culture and protects its heritage. We're a country that breathes life into the French language and is heard across the world. We're a country that celebrates its diversity and draws strength from its differences.
You know that? My doggy has an infection.
We're a country that celebrates the right of each and every person to be who they want to be, to pray as they pray, and love whom they love. We're a country that will always defend a woman's right to choose.
You just keep killing those kids. Oh, look at this one. Oh, man.
And we're a country that will be diplomatic when we can, but fight when we must, elbows up.
Elbows up, you can...
But you here in this room, and our fellow Liberals watching across the country, you know all about fighting with grit, with determination when the going gets tough. You remember where we were 15 years ago with just 35 seats in the House. You remember our ups and downs and all those times that people counted us out, all the times they said our party was on its last breath. Like all Canadians, it's when you try to count us out that we Liberals show our true mettle.
You showed this in 2015, 2019, and again in 2021. You mobilized. You knocked on doors. You did it in the rain, in a heat wave, in the freezing cold.
Holy smokes,
You
everyone's
did it in
left.
The middle of a
Everyone's
pandemic,
left except for a few
wearing
people.
a mask.
No one can listen
You
to this
fought
guy.
for your country, and you've changed it for the better. You know, a party, it's more than just a name, a logo, a leader.
It's all a lie. He lies.
It's all about you. You.
He lies.
The hopes
He's a
of
liar.
Canadians day in, day out.
And
A country
unfortunately,
is more than a flag and a territory.
they're all standing
It's
for
a
him.
vision.
But if you look in that room,
A
how
vision
many
which
people are
is
healthy?
built gradually,
people are actively
day after
engaged
day,
in
between friends
physical therapy,
and neighbours.
mental
And I'd like to thank all those who have been there to build this vision together. I'm thinking here about my first volunteers 18 years ago, those who have been there since the start. Rennes, Louis-Alexandre, Stavroula, and others, so many others. I'm thinking about the grocery store parking lot in Papineau, when we talk to people to rally them to our cause, to our movement.
Also thinking of two friends in particular who've been there with me and for me every step of the way for close to 20 years. The extraordinary Adam Scotty and the unstoppable Katie Telford. Now, as I look at all of you in this room, no speech could be enough to thank you all as much as I'd like to, as much as you should be. I can't even offer you a well-deserved break because, once again, we need you. Your country needs you maybe more than ever. And I have no doubt that you will answer the call because you've done it before. Liberals will meet this moment. And make no mistake, this is a nation-defining moment. Democracy is not a given. Freedom is not a given. Even Canada
he's still talking.
is not a given.
This guy's still
None of
talking.
those happen by accident. None of them will continue.
I can't believe he's
without
still
effort.
talking.
It takes courage. It takes sacrifice. It takes hope and hard work.
I'd like to acknowledge the 4 people that are still watching and listening.
60 years ago, standing atop Parliament Hill, Prime Minister Lester B. Pearson first raised our beautiful maple leaf into the Canadian sky. It was much debated at the time, but Pearson knew well what we all know now, that our flag would serve as a unifying symbol that would define the next chapters in our national story. 60 years later, there are still so many more chapters to write. And I can tell you The world is looking to see what Canadians will do. So let us not dwell on all the great things we've achieved over the past 10 years. Let us aspire instead to achieve even more over the next 10 years and the decades to come. Let us remain steadfast, defiant, and united. And let us not just think about our party, let us prove our love of country. As your leader, as your Prime Minister, I have done my level best each and every single day to help build a country that stays worthy of all Canadians. I've done it for Xavier, for Ella Grace and Hadrian.
Ella Grace and
I've done it for your kids too. I've done it with you.
Your kids don't eat lunch bag meals at school.
Alongside you, cheering along, their future and your future is now in your hands. Merci, mes amis. Merci pour tout.
Thank fucking God. Get out. Why do they keep going back?
You'll always find me alongside you, cheering along. Their future and your future.
Why do they keep going back to this person?
Your hands. Merci, mes amis. Merci pour tout.
Well, they keep going back to this person here and this kid over and over. Well, that's his daughter, I guess. But who's this? Is that his little child, maybe? But who's this lady? Forgive me if I don't know. If you know, please put in the chat.
Outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau with two of his kids there making his farewell address to Liberals who have assembled. We're waiting now for former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien. And your thoughts on that speech?
Well, it was. I thought it was a good speech. I mean, you know, he hit on all the right notes. He went back to some early slogans: hope and hard work, middle class and those working hard to reach it. All of those kinds of things. And you would have to have a heart of stone not to have been moved by his daughter Ella Grace's introduction.
Where's his son? His son's not there with him.
It was a good introduction, and I thought that the speech was fitting for a leader who is stepping aside.
And here's Mr. Chrétien making his way out. Brian, your thoughts as he gets his way? Oh, actually, I might not have time. He moves pretty quick.
He's going to jump right into it, I have no doubt.
Former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien. Let's take a listen in.
Monsieur le Premier Ministre Trudeau.
Prime Minister Trudeau, candidates, President of the party, ministers and MPs, good evening. This is an exceptional opportunity for me to be here this evening. This is my ninth Liberal convention that I participated in. And it's the 7th time that I've spoken at the podium. I would have never thought that I could do it at 91. I'm still ready to fight. I have fight in me yet.
So many young people in the room today. It reminds me of my first Liberal convention when I was the president of the Young Liberals at Laval University. In 1958, when Lester Pearson was elected Liberal leader. in 1958. Not many of you were born. And he then became a very good prime minister. I have kept...
You know, this guy was being asked by many people back in the late 60s, early 70s to look into the abuses and the atrocities that happen at residential schools, and he basically just denied it. And he's now allowed to be up here to speak.
Coming to Liberal Convention for 68 years. I have kept coming back to Liberal Convention because of what the Liberal Party stand for. I have kept coming back because of what the Liberal Party has delivered to make the lives of Canadians better. And I am here today because it is the Liberal Party that can best deliver the better lives for Canadians in the days, weeks, months, and years ahead. It is the Liberal Party that has given Canadians the Canadian Pension Plan and Medicare, the Charter of Rights and Freedom, the 2 official languages that put the Indigenous rights into the Canadian Constitution, brought in tough gun control laws, affirmative action.
Affirmative action.
We have always supported women's right to choose.
God help you, bro.
We are the party who led the way to permit the second party in the country in the world.
Was it 1968? What happened with women's rights in children? Something big happened in North America.
To permit same-sex marriage.
They allowed this. This is the guy that allowed same-sex marriage. I mean, if you...
The party is the party of diversity, equality, tolerance, openness, and inclusive.
Let's go this whole, like, this whole same-sex marriage thing, right? Like, they didn't want to get married in the church because the church didn't believe that same-sex people should be getting married, because in order to get married, you have children and then you follow the religion of whatever religion you're in. So that's why. So the reality is these people that were gay and had a husband or a wife, then that were female or male and had the same-sex partners, they wanted the same tax credits, tax stuff, as everyone else did. That's what they wanted to be recognized. It wasn't the taxes. It wasn't in their religious aspect. And he's sitting here taking credit for stupid shit. Anyways, God bless you, bro. You're 94. You done your job. Just like Trudeau. And you'll be out too.
We Liberals call it the very essence of Canada. And it is.
It is blessed.
Ladies and gentlemen, these
makes
are
me
liberal
absolutely
policies.
disgusting.
And let's talk about the economic reality of the moment now. Because Canada has done well.
Canada's done well.
I'm telling you,
Canada's done well.
as I've said so many times, Canada is not broken.
No, it will never be broken. But it's fucked up bad.
Despite the attacks by the critics, Canada has the lowest
My finger is
deficit
broken
per
because some
capita in
junkie
the
bit it.
G7.
And the cops just let him
More
go
than
walk down
5
the street.
times lower than in the United States. For the lowest debt per capita in the G7. And in fact, the payment on the interest of the debt today is only 11% for each dollar of tax we pay, and compared to what we got when we formed the government in 1993, we were obliged to pay 35 cents in every tax dollar.
This is embarrassing.
That was a little problem the Tories left to me. And we balanced the books. We took that mess from the Tories and we balanced the books. And we had 10 years of surplus. And the Tories came back to power and we went back in debt. Now inflation is 1.9% in Canada. It's 3.2% and increasing south of the border. You know, I spend my life talking about job creations. Now the problem, we're looking for manpower. It's a difficult problem, but it's better than the reverse. You know, I want to pay tribute
to who?
To the government, to Mr. Trudeau, and to all the provincial governments for the fact that they have been with the municipalities put together the best program on the pandemic that we face, better than any other country in the world. Our death rate was less than half of the United States. Today, as a party, we're choosing a new leader. A leader who will assume the mantle of Laurier and King, Saint Laurent and Pearson, Trudeau's father, Trudeau, the son, who has with him a very beautiful daughter. You know, I'm old enough to say that. And myself. And that is very important. I want to take this moment to say how impressed I am by the quality of the candidates whose names are on the ballot tonight. It makes me very, very proud to be a Liberal. Et maintenant, parlons.
And now, let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Really?
The long and fruitful, which is falling apart before our eyes, and is becoming something which is difficult to name. Mutual respect, trust, reciprocal cooperation, friendship, which...
If you're listening, I just want you to know the reason I'm watching this is because as much as I disagree with the shithead, you got to give them the respect being a prime minister as much as he doesn't deserve it. But I really want to hear... I don't know what I'm doing. I just feel really bad for our government. I feel really bad for our people that's in it. And, yeah, you know, you're making money, you're working. A lot of people are out there doing what they're doing, but it is what it is.
Rest of the planet. Why? Well, why? Historians, journalists, university researchers and experts in international politics are trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. Well, in Canada, our elbows are up. We're working together to unite, to deal with this threat, the threat to our economy and our sovereignty. In other words, our very existence as a country. At the beginning of the week, tariffs became a reality. And there will only be losers if you measure it in financial terms alone. But for Canadians, it's more than that. It's more than money that's at stake here. We love our country and our independence. We love who we are because we're unique in the world.
To the Trudeau government and all the premier for the way they have led Canada in the last few weeks in confronting the menace imposed on us.
I don't... Politics. Politics do not equal politics.
With tariff completely unjustified. Governments have absolutely right in retaliating as they have, and I congratulate all of them. If it is necessary, the governments altogether can consider going further, anything the Americans where it really hurts, by imposing an export tax on oil, gas, potash, steel, aluminum, and electricity.
This guy's mental. He wants to go to war.
And we'll use that money.
You know, I had a very close friend of mine that, like, I'm presuming he was a very powerful guy in our society, or as much as he represented his power. I don't really know if that was true, but he spoke really well. These guys do not have, they control way too much. And I can't talk about this meathead.
To build infrastructure that are needed in Canada. For example, to build a pipeline for natural gas from Alberta to Quebec.
Okay. Why not just right to Newfoundland?
Alberta, the family of my mother, and Quebec,
come on,
of my father. So, you know, I think that if we do that, that will keep the steel workers working in Canada for a long time. And I could go on and on, but I'm limited in time. So, the world has lived for 80 years with a rule-based order that has brought us peace and prosperity. It has enabled the United States to be the strongest, the most powerful country in the world. It has allowed all of us to sleep well every night. And now, Donald Trump has decided to throw it all out the window. We are going to be living very difficult time. But I'm confident, I'm very confident that the next Prime Minister will work with the premiers, the leaders of all the political parties in the House of Commons, and allies around the world to stand together to meet the challenges that Mr. Trump is creating for the whole world. Prime Minister will work with the premiers, the leaders of all the political parties in the House of Commons. And perhaps, speaking of the president, it is time for a little history lesson for him. Probably does not realize that in 1776, Benjamin Franklin spent a year in Montreal trying to convince the people to join the American Revolution. And he was told by the Francophone, non merci.
Imagine what our world would be like.
And they were right. Look what happened to the French language in Louisiana. The Loyalists left the USA
Check
to
radio.
come back to Upper Canada and the Atlantic.
Check radio.
And the Francophone and Lower Canada,
Check,
together they built
check.
our independent country. During the War of 1812, American troops came to what is now Canada on a mission of conquest. They were defeated, the Francophone by Colonel de Salaberry in what is now Quebec, and by leaders like the great indigenous chief Tecumseh in what is now Ontario. Well, American troops came to what is now Canada. And I don't know, apparently some burned the White House at that time. But I'm too old to do it. No, it's a joke.
Hello.
In what is now Ontario. But, ladies and gentlemen,
Hello.
we have been friends and good neighbors. And I don't know, apparently some burned the White House.
Hello. Check.
Southern neighbors. But we must stand up for ourselves. Historically, despite our friendship, we have had problems, but we always found a way to solve them.
Check.
We have worked with and collaborated with ourselves. The United States in the past, and I'm telling you, we will do so in the future. We are good neighbors and friends. We are good neighbors and friends, but we are proud and independent country. But sometimes one must stand up for Canada. We must always be vigilant. And I did so as minister and as prime minister. Way back in 1968, when the Americans sent a ship, the Manhattan, with no Canadian flag through our Northern Passage, they wanted to prove that the passage was international water. As Minister of Northern Affairs, I flew to Pound Inlet at the northern extremity of Baffinland to confront them. I was on the Louis Saint-Laurent icebreaker. I called the captain. I said I will be there in an hour. And it's better to have the Canadian flag at the
Well,
bus.
I mean, this is the most offensive and ironically unifying message the president has delivered to Canadians. We're pissed off. We're more united than we've ever been. It is a grievous insult to us. And we know that the president, in back rooms with Canadian officials, has said he wants to redraw the border. Completely unacceptable. If this president wants to annex Canada, you should save his breath to cool his soup, because it's never going to happen.
And I had a
It'll never
big
be the
smile.
51st state, and that is clear.
You know, we had
The
other
White House
problems
also
of the
says that
same
Canada
nature.
wouldn't be paying these tariffs if
You
it became
remember
America's 51st state.
Newfoundland,
We've heard the president say this
the
time and
so-called
time again.
fish war?
What is your response to that?
Well, I
When
mean,
we
this is the most
arrested
offensive
Estee,
and ironically
when my friend Tobin
unifying
made a great show
message
at the
the president
UN
has delivered
with
to
the
Canadians.
illegal
We're pissed off.
nets.
We're more united than we've ever been. It is a grievous insult to
And
us.
we were
and we know that
successful.
the president in
They
back
changed the
rooms,
international
with,
laws
Canadian
after that
officials has
to-
said he wants to
because
redraw the border.
there was
Completely
a problem that
unacceptable.
needed
If this
to be
president wants to
fixed.
annex Canada, you should
And
save his
I'm
breath to
quite
cool his
proud
soup,
of it, and
because
it
it's never
was
going to happen.
quite a
It'll never be
time.
the 51st state, and that is clear.
So the White House also says that Canada
I
wouldn't
was
be paying these
traveling
tariffs if it became
in the
America's
West. I came
51st
back.
state. We've
It
heard
was
the president
Holy
say
Week.
this time and time again. What
So
is your
it was a
response to that?
Thursday.
Well,
Holy
I mean,
Week.
this is the most
So
offensive
my wife said, we'll
and
have a good rest for the
ironically,
weekend.
Unifying
And I said,
message
perhaps
the
not,
president has
because I'm
delivered to
declaring
Canadians.
war
We're
to
pissed off.
Spain on
We're more united than we've ever been. It is a grievous insult
She did
to
not
us.
sleep.
And we know that the president in back rooms
But,
with Canadian
you know,
officials has
we
said
had
he wants
another
to
problem
redraw the border.
on the West Coast.
Completely unacceptable.
You know, we have
if
Vancouver
this president
Island,
wants to annex
the
Canada, you should
mainland,
save his breath to cool
in
his
Canadian
soup,
water.
because it's never going to happen.
And the
It'll never be
fishermen
the
from
51st
Oregon
state,
and
that is
Washington
clear.
State
The
were
White House
going
also
to
says that
Alaska,
Canada wouldn't be paying these
but they were
tariffs
not
if it became
respecting our
America's 51st
water.
state.
So we threatened them to block the passage on Canadian water. and force them to go in the high seas. It was a very difficult problem. The Senator of Alaska said it was almost a question of war.
Don't fucking touch!
Hey,
So I
don't
discussed that, and I
fucking
told
touch
my
us, you
friend
Nazi
Bill
piece of
Clinton, and he
shit!
said,
why am I not?
Fuck you!
There's not much I can do.
You Nazis, get
But
the
if we
fuck
can
out of
do
here!
Something, I
Stop
will do
touching my
something.
camera.
I'm not touching it.
And
Well, you're giving
they
you
were
got some good
forced
fingers there, sir.
to respect
Can
our
you
laws.
let my
Some
cameraman
were taken
back
to
the
courts.
fuck off? You back off.
And after
I'm
that,
right here.
the
I'm standing my
problem
ground. You back off.
was solved because we stood for
You
us
stand here?
strongly. But for 8 years,
I've lost
I was
all
a
my
colleague of
friends.
Bill Clinton.
This guy's still
And he would
talking.
always say that Canada was his best ally. And that I was. That decision told the United States and the world that Canada is a proud, independent country. Of course, the business community was very nervous. They were afraid of retaliation. So I told them, okay, give me the list of all the goods and all the services that the Americans are buying from us because they like us. I've not received the list yet. So, you know, we will work in collaboration with them. But, you know, they have to understand, and everybody understand, that we are a very proud country. And for me, I can tell you that sometimes I can say this from one old guy to another old guy. Stop this nonsense.
He's talking to the American president, and they're not Canadians. They're not American. Like, it's a different country.
Canada will never join the United States.
I will.
I can tell you that my parents were not millionaires from New York. They were workers from Shawinigan. But my mother taught us good manners. She would have been ashamed of me if I had treated anyone the way that the president treated my prime minister and the president in Ukraine in the last few weeks.
Ever dealt with transport issues before, and now they're going to go out and try and learn about them? But you had how many years driving truck with 15-hour days to think about all those issues and now can apply them? Like, we need more blue-collar people in politics. We need less politicians with political science majors and more politicians with calluses on their hands. We need more people like you as the transport critic. Being a trucker, you know what truckers deal with. You know what transport issues are in the province.
So I want to say thank you to him. And I think I will propose him for the Order of Canada. I'm just kidding. Mesdames et messieurs.
Ladies and gentlemen, when I was Prime Minister, I would travel across the world. I went to the UN, to the G7, to NATO, to the Commonwealth, to the Francophonie, and to all sorts of international meetings on the 5 continents. When I came back to Canada, each time I would say that the job of being Prime Minister is perhaps the easiest of any country in the world. Canada is the country that works the best, I think. Much better than any other country in the world.
There are millions and millions of human beings from all over the world who would like to come and become Canadian citizens. There was a survey not long ago. They were asking the people, where will you want to go if you had to start again your life? And Canada was number one. Why? It is because Canada is the land of freedom.
I just asked you a question. You finally answered the
Canada
question.
is the land of opportunity, the land of generosity, the land of tolerance, the land of stability, the land of rule of law. It is our land that is the envy of the world. Canada will continue to rise through north strong and free. Nobody will starve us into submission because Canada is and will remain the best country in the world.
In December 2003, as a result of the threat of losing the leadership review and pressure from a pro-Martin faction, Chrétien resigned as prime minister and retired from politics. He's retiring again. Retired. He's gone. He's gone.
Former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien there addressing
It's a bad
supporters
limp.
in the room. Shakir Chambers, Brian Gallant, and Anne McGrath with me. Brian, your thoughts on that as we now count down to the announcement of a new leader?
Yeah, I mean, Chrétien is always a fan favorite for Liberals, but I think Liberals also see him as a fan favorite for Canadians. I think that he sort of gives this sense of, as Anne was saying, a centrist Liberal who did many important social issues, advanced them in his tenure, and certainly somebody that was able to grow the economy and also get the finances in order. So not only does he get people riled up in a Liberal convention, but he also, I think the party hopes will sort of bring that reminiscent to Canadians about what he was able to accomplish.
If you're just joining us now, that's the president of the Liberal Party as we count down to expecting the results of the evening. It was a ranked ballot, Shakir. Equal weighting per riding. I'm going to keep one ear tuned to the floor to listen in there. Your thoughts on what we've heard so far and looking ahead to the announcement?
I think when I look at Prime Minister Trudeau's speech, I think it's easy when someone leaves a prominent role to have selective memory and talk about only the positive things. But I think there's a lot of things that Prime Minister Trudeau left out that were disastrous for Canadians, and I think Conservatives will kind of point those things out.
Yep.
I think when we look at the results coming up, I mean, as I said earlier, Mark Carney is going to win this. If he's not on the first ballot, I'm pretty sure he's everybody else's second choice, so it should be wrapped up pretty quickly. And like I said, let's get it on to the general election.
Can we talk a little bit about, Anne, is there a difference between if this is a first ballot win for Mr. Carney or if it takes a few?
I think
outward?
Yeah, I think it has to be a first ballot victory. And in a ranked ballot, I mean, I think a lot of Liberals were probably pretty impressed by some of the other candidates as well and would have placed them second. So I think it has to be a first ballot victory. And you know, like, this is a leadership convention. Leadership conventions are an exciting moment for party members and for activists. And this convention is, you know, kind of gathering all that emotional energy. And the hard work begins tomorrow, because I think it will be probably Mark Carney, and he's going to have a record that he has to defend of his own, and he's going to have to be let out of the bubble, and we're going to have to find out whether or not he can withstand the heat of partisan politics.
Yeah, does essentially this part of the cycle, once this announcement is made, Brian, and right away, do you anticipate we're headed into what is more formally an election cycle, even if it's a week or 2 weeks before a campaign starts?
Yes, but I mean, we can't ignore the fact that there's also the whole idea of him being sworn in as Prime Minister, which I'm guessing will be very quick.
Very quick this
very
week,
quick.
yeah.
So,
as soon as Tuesday, I hear, yeah.
So, I mean, in the normal course of things, he would be getting a bunch of briefing binders to know what's going on and decisions that need to be made. And then, obviously, in parallel to that, he has to decide when we go into an election, or if he wants to go to Parliament. But I think we're all hearing that there most likely would be an early election in a matter of weeks. So it's going to be a lot for him, because there are probably going to be some things he needs to decide and bring cabinet together. He'll probably want to bring the other first ministers, the premiers together as well to discuss the trade conflict. So there's going to be a lot coming at him in short order.
Just quickly before I move on to Shakir, galvanizing for the party to have
in particular, outgoing Prime Minister Trudeau here, as well as Jean Chrétien. I mean, 2 months ago, I'm not sure if you would have assembled a similar lineup. Like, there was even speculation as a month ago that Justin Trudeau wouldn't be here tonight.
Look, I think no matter what, the party is going to want to thank any leader that has represented the party, and I think anybody that has certainly served as the Prime Minister will get that recognition. And there's been a bit of a bounce back, and frankly, you have to look at the polls. I mean, Liberals are still behind, sure, but with Trudeau as a leader, they did bounce back a bit. So I think people are feeling a little more comfortable with the idea for the politics and the PR of it to have him celebrated and thanked. And certainly I think they're all very eager as well, though, to hear who the winner is and hear the ultimate speech from whoever the winner is.
It's so interesting if you look back on the campaign, like so many others that we were referencing earlier. I remember watching, like, in my living room in 2005 when I was just a kid in my 20s, all the ballots and all the intrigue and who was negotiating with who and the surprise at the end of the day. Like, this is essentially the opposite of that.
Yeah, that intrigue is not there. And I mean, I would argue this leadership race, generally speaking, has been largely a non-event for a lot of people. And I say it in the sense of, you don't have that same feel of a general election where you have lawn signs out. I think for a lot of folks, that I've been saying that the outcome was kind of predetermined, if you will. It was a foregone conclusion. And again, this is a matter for the internal workings of the Liberal Party. So I don't see that same excitement outside of this room that Brian is talking about. And we'll see if, they can carry this kind of momentum outside of the Liberal Party and have the broader Canadian audience kind of be motivated and excited about Mark Carney once he wins.
The only caveat I would add to that, maybe that, could be something to watch going forward, is I do think that in general, there is a really high level of engagement among Canadians, not particularly for any one political party's own internal workings, but for the issues that we face at this one moment in time.
100%. There's an existential threat coming from the
everyone's
from the
talking
Trump
about
presidency.
it.
Absolutely, and people are buying Canadian. People are looking for ways to contribute in their own way. So absolutely, Trump is a key figure in this election that's coming up. Tonight is, as I said, it's the party faithful. It's a little bit like an awards ceremony where all the runners up jump to their feet and applaud, which we will see when the announcement happens, I'm sure.
Brian, when you think about the Carney candidacy in particular, and then Freeland, Gould, the race for second place, will you be watching that at all to see if Gould and what that says?
Well, let me start off by saying I do agree with Shakir in the sense that I don't think this leadership got as much attention as maybe some others would, only because first off it was shorter, but second off, how can you take up any of the oxygen when Trump is taking all of it? So I think that's probably not great for the party overall, but if it is Carney the candidate, maybe as we were discussing earlier, maybe it's not so bad that he was able to go a little more under the radar and practice being a politician a little bit. And in terms of second place, yeah, I think so. I mean, Karina Gould certainly, in the eyes of many here, and I'm sure a lot of her supporters, is sort of the future of the party. So I think people are excited about her candidacy and just her playing a role within the party for years to come. And Freeland, I think that would be certainly a bit of a difficult day or difficult night, to say the least, if she wasn't able to at least finish second. But she seems to be a team player, at least so far tonight. So I'm sure she'll be happy to support whoever the winner is.
In addition to the very imminent possibility of a swearing in for Mark Carney, there's going to be a swearing in for cabinet. My understanding is as soon as this week as well, Shakir, which brings me to the question of Chrystia Freeland, right? Who yes, is showing herself tonight to be very supportive. But if Mark Carney's desire is to deliver a message of change or attempt to, it would be difficult to keep her on the front bench. I don't think as hard with the other candidates, but it might be difficult with her.
Yeah, I think if you want to make a clean break from Justin Trudeau, having her in cabinet in a prominent role becomes very problematic. And I would question, if she's not in a prominent role, does she even run again for the party, right? Does she just say, you know what, I've done enough, let's move on? So it'll be interesting to see how Mark Carney handles the Chrystia Freeland question.
I'm just going to listen in very quickly to the stage, because I think the president of the party is about to get into, I'm trying to listen with one part of my ear, but about to get into the announcement of the results. So we'll just take a listen in for a moment. I believe the results will be read by the individual, or at least are coming up. So let's take a look in.
Now have the pleasure to invite Beatrice Keller-Dufour, who has been acting as Chief Electoral Officer for the vote and has worked to protect the integrity of the process. Beatrice, over to you.
Thank you.
Chrystia Freeland.
A reminder that the winner must receive more than 50% of the points allocated in a ballot to win.
Christina Gould.
The following are the results of the first ballot, with
Andrew Brome. Drew Coover,
151,899 votes cast.
8,000? How many votes?
Is Keller Dufour, who has been acting as Chief Electoral Officer for the vote and has worked to protect the integrity of the process. Beatrice, over to you.
There's only 3 of us watching.
Thank you. A reminder that the winner must receive more than 50% of the points allocated in a ballot to win. The following are the results of the first ballot with 151,899 votes cast.
Ballot 1, 151,000.
In fourth place, Frank Baylis with 4,038 votes, resulting in 1,014 allocated points, representing 3% of the vote.
He only got 3% of the vote. Wow. How discouraging.
In third place, Karina Gould with 4,785 votes, resulting in 1,100 allocated points, representing 3.2% of the vote.
How could you even join the fight when you know you're not gonna at least
In second place, Chrystia Freeland with 11,134 votes, resulting in 2,729 allocated points, representing 8% of the vote. In first place, the next Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, with 131,674 votes, resulting in 29,457 allocated points, representing 85.9% of the vote.
85%.
And there you have it, the announcement of the Liberal Party's new leader, Mark Carney, on a decisive first ballot win, garnering almost 86% of the vote. His competitors, nowhere even close. Chrystia Freeland, former finance minister, with 8% of the vote, and both Karina Gould and Frank Baylis with each about 3% of the vote. And this is Mark Carney now shaking hands with his supporters. We do anticipate we'll hear from Carney tonight. Mike LeCouture, our senior political correspondent, is amidst the crowd as they celebrate their new leader on the floor. Mike, can you hear me? I'm going to send it over to you. What's it like there?
Yeah, I've actually certainly jubilant. I think when everybody heard where Chrystia Freeland, they started to do the math and start to understand what was happening here. And certainly the eruption of applause on the floor here. And you see a lot of these signs now with Carney popping up around everybody with a lot of screams, of course, and really excited and invigorated now when you consider.
Freeland with 11,134 votes.
My father is, to his core, a man of commitment. I don't just mean that in a general sense. He is unflinchingly dedicated to what matters. Focus and principles.
Why are they using their children
funny
that are like
and kind.
teenagers?
Canadians care about actions, and my father is a man of action. A man who has traveled the length of Canada to hear what Canadians want from their leaders, what they want for their future. He's up early to read his papers and stays up late preparing for the next day. He has taught me the importance of always putting in the work. But you can work hard all you want. If you don't have a solid foundation, there's nothing to build on. And that's what I really want to share with you tonight. The foundation that makes my father who he is. He is unwaveringly supportive of the things he cares about. Every year for our birthdays, he burned us CDs, and somehow they were good. Sometimes now, when we don't know what to get him, we make him a playlist.
Carry this kind of momentum outside of the Liberal Party.
He cheered me on in the freezing cold at my cross-country races. He sat for hours to help me with my math homework, persevering until I understood. I can tell you that I appreciate this more in hindsight than I did at the time. In all seriousness, my dad invests in what matters. He expects nothing to come without hard work, and he is always ready to work hard. The bottom... The bottom line is, however hard things may seem, he shows up and never lets you down. He has and always will show up for you, for Canadians, and for Canada, because he cares about this great country. Now, my father, your new Liberal leader, and the 24th Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney. Merci.
Prime Minister, I think it's clear we should just skip a generation. Alors, bonsoir tout le monde. Wow. This room is strong. This room is Canada strong. Thank you, Cleo. Thank you, Cleo. And to my wife, Diana, our children, Cleo, Tess, Amelia, and Sasha. Without your support, I wouldn't be standing here.
She looks like she's like 70 years old and her kids are 15, 20.
And like the Prime Minister, without your examples, I wouldn't have a purpose. And
it just happened.
And without your love, I wouldn't have the strength that I need for what lies ahead. Thank you.
Mr. Chrétien, you still know how to energize the Liberal Party supporters like no one else can do it. You took courageous and historic decisions. You showed our allies that Canada will always stand up for what is just and fair. You're a source of inspiration for all Canadians across the land.
I say that you inspired my family to become Liberals, including my father to run as a Liberal candidate in Alberta in the 1980s. Some elections are tougher than others. And you inspired me. Over the years. And now to have an opportunity to continue your tradition of fiscal responsibility, social justice, and international leadership.
going to be tough.
Prime Minister Trudeau, my time doesn't permit me to recognize all of your accomplishments. So I'll speak at a higher level. You have combined strength and compassion every day as a fighter for Canada. You have led us through some of the hardest challenges that this nation has ever faced.
At the same time, you have transformed Canada. You've transformed it. You've lifted hundreds of thousands of kids out of poverty. By moving reconciliation forward and by defending freedom and democracy here and across the world. Prime Minister, I think I am speaking for everyone here when I thank you for your hard work. As Ella Grace said, your hard work, for your leadership, and for your service to our great country. And I'd also like to thank you, Liberals, for having awarded me the greatest honor possible, which is to serve as your new leader. Thank you. I'd like to thank the tens of thousands of volunteers across.
My friends, I am done. My back is billing. It's got to lay down. I got to do my stretches. As Brian Leclerc said, this makes me sick. He just congratulated. I mean, I understand when you take over a position from another person that's in the president role. I've done it a couple of times with a few different things, but you cannot congratulate that guy for what he's done to Canada. And I am so grateful that Prime Minister Trudeau is no longer our Prime Minister. And I hope the people in power will go and take him to jail. Just do what they need to do, because that guy needs to get buried. God bless. Thanks for watching, my friend.